Hello and welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Explore our playlist for more captivating novels, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Becoming the Familiar of the Goddess of Forging. From today on, you will officially become a member of the Hephaestus Familia. In the shop filled with the heat of the fire, the goddess with long red hair smiled kindly at the boy with his bare back. You've grown up too, Su Yi. The black-haired boy called Su Yi scratched his head. Have I received God's grace? My body doesn't seem to have changed much. Because you have just started your adventure, you are only at the lowest level, LV1. The goddess of forging, Hephaestus patted Su Yi on the shoulder and encouraged him. Don't be too impatient. Even precious metals need to be forged thousands of times before they can take shape. Su Yi nodded thoughtfully, his eyes filled with excitement. More than 10 years have passed since I traveled to the world of Dicuo. Today, he finally received God's grace. As long as you can accumulate great achievements and improve your ability values, you can continue to upgrade and become stronger. However, for our clan, the way to achieve great deeds is not just fighting. As she spoke, Hephaestus picked up the forge hammer again and began to hammer the mold on the anvil. The situation in the underground city is complicated and accidents can easily happen. You can first accumulate feats through forging, and raise your level to LV2, then it won't be too late to venture into the dungeon. A blacksmith with excellent craftsmanship is also very popular among adventurers. As the god of forging, Hephaestus's family is very famous in the labyrinth city. The work of the senior blacksmiths belonging to the Hephaestus family enjoys the highest quality reputation in the market. Even if first-rate adventurers or clansmen wanted to purchase it, they would have to consider their own financial resources. Because of this, the Hephaestus Familia is one of the few families in the labyrinth city of Terraria that does not rely on tribute from adventurers to operate. Although Su Yi has just become a member of Hephaestus's family. But before that, he had studied blacksmithing skills for several years from the goddess. You can also repair armor and weapons for novice adventurers to earn some pocket money. I understand, but I still want to go to the Adventurers Guild to familiarize myself with it first. Looking at Su Yi's excited face, the red-haired goddess smiled helplessly. Forget it, I'll treat these few days as a day off for you. Just don't forget to bring food to that parasite. If left alone, that guy would probably become the first god to die of starvation and have to return to heaven. The rice bug that Hephaestus mentioned was naturally her best friend. She is also the face of Dicuo, the goddess of the hearth known as the blue ribbon, Hestia. Hestia at this time had just come down from heaven and was very greedy and lazy. I spend every day eating, drinking, playing, sleeping and lying down. No wonder Hephaestus used the word parasite to describe her. But as a good friend, I can't just leave it alone. She could only let Su Yi from her own family take care of her. Come to think of it, it's almost time to feed the guests. I mean, it's time to bring food. Su Yi glanced at the clock hanging on the wall of the blacksmith shop. It's magical to say, even though it has been exposed to smoke and fire all year round. This clock, however, looks as smooth and bright as if it had just been bought. Perhaps it was the power of the goddess that protected it inadvertently. Well then, goddess, I'm leaving now. When Su Yi was about to leave the room, he suddenly remembered something and turned to Hephaestus who was swinging the hammer. Even if I become an adventurer, I will not give up my training as a blacksmith. One day, I will forge something that will amaze even the goddess. When that time comes, goddess, please don't forget the promise we made. I know. The red-haired goddess muttered without even turning her head. Let's wait until that day comes. Your current level is still far behind mine. After the boy's footsteps gradually faded away and disappeared completely, Hephaestus stopped what she was doing and touched her flushed cheek. After all these years, you still remember this? Is this kid serious about me? If he really can forge something that surpasses mine. After a moment, the goddess shook her head and cleared the distracting thoughts from her mind. Refocus your attention on the hammer in your hand. Two tater tots, please. On the way out of Babel Tower, Su Yi bought 2 fried potato balls from a street food stall. This crispy, delicious and filling snack only costs 30 Ferris per serving and is a favorite of many adventurers. If it weren't for the fact that it would lose its best flavor after cooling down. I'm afraid many adventurers would buy some as food reserves when exploring the maze. Should I explore the maze first, or accumulate my knowledge and then make a breakthrough? On the way, Suyi couldn't help but think about the questions that emerged in his mind. After officially obtaining God's favor, if you want to upgrade your level, you must accumulate great deeds. Great deeds are similar to experience points required to level up. As Hephaestus said, the way to achieve greatness does not necessarily have to be fighting. It can also be other deeds that are worthy of glory and merit. For example, forging a powerful weapon, researching new magic or props, etc. However, combat-type feats such as defeating powerful enemies are the simplest and most direct way to obtain them. Moreover, during the battle, you will also exercise your basic abilities and improve your ability values. In contrast, upgrading through forging is very safe. However, due to the limited improvement in ability values, his own strength is definitely not as strong as that of combat-type adventurers. Just as Suyi was thinking, a prompt suddenly popped up in front of him. It is detected that the host has obtained God's grace, and the myriad worlds crossing system has been activated. Currently traversable world. 1. System. Suyi was stunned at first. Then there came a surge of joy. After so many years, his benefit as a time traveler has finally arrived. The myriad worlds crossing system sounds very powerful. And right when you get up there, there's a world you can travel through. Let me see what kind of world it is. Based on the information that comes into your mind after activating the system. Suyi opened the system panel and found a new world waiting for him to explore. However, when he saw the name of this world, his body was shocked and he stood there in a daze. Traversable world, Terraria disaster. Chapter 2 Hestia's feeding time. Terraria, a game world full of treasures and dangers. But if you add the word disaster at the end, that's another matter, both in terms of power level and degree of danger. They are far beyond the original Terraria world. The first world I traveled to was Terraria with the Calamity mod installed. Is that really appropriate? After thinking about it, Suyi could accept it. At least not some Terra with the holy name. And in a sense, the world of Terraria is very suitable for Suyi, a novice adventurer. Keep reading for more information about the world of Terraria. Traversable world, Terraria disaster. This world has the following rules. The time flow rate ratio with the main world is 2:1. After dying in this world, you will automatically be resurrected in the main world. Death penalty is a ban on entering that world for 1 day. You can get a pioneering reward when you enter this world for the first time. Exploring a world may cause irreversible changes to that world. A few simple lines of rules reveal a lot of information. If the Dicuo world is identified as the main world, spend 2 days in Terraria, and only 1 day will pass in the overworld. And in Terraria, you can also be resurrected after death. The punishment is nothing more than being unable to explore the Terraria world for 1 day. This means that Suyi can feel free to die in Terraria. Of course, it would be best if he doesn't die. However, considering that the world of Terraria is filled with many traps and mechanisms that are difficult to guard against, Suyi was not too optimistic about the upcoming land reclamation journey. There are also rewards for pioneering new land. I really want to travel to the world of Terraria right now. Suyi glanced at the passers-by on the street wearing various clothes and protective gear, and silently put away his somewhat excited expression. You definitely can't perform a magic trick in public. After all, this is a maze city favored by the gods. It is no exaggeration to say that every inch of land here is under the sight of God. It's best not to be too ostentatious. Let's go feed Hestia first. Weighing the 2 bags of potato balls in his hand, Suyi walked towards the abandoned church. After all, fried potatoes won't taste as good if they get cold. Grandpa Hestia. Woohoo. Suyi, you're finally here. As soon as he pushed the door open, Suyi saw a white figure rushing towards him. The lowly goddess, with her waist-length black hair tied into 2 ponytails, kept pushing her pretty face against Suyi as if she had seen a savior. This taste is my favorite fried potato balls. That's right. Suyi placed the still warm food on the table and grabbed Hestia's collar. Goddess, please be more reserved and at least wash your hands before eating. But I'm already very hungry. Hestia finally turned her gaze from the fried potato balls to Suyi. The young face showed a pitiful expression, which made people feel pity for it. If they hadn't been together for several years, even Suyi wouldn't have believed it. The lowly goddess in front of me turned out to be a lazy and greedy person who ate and drank for free from her good friend's family like a parasite. Even Hephaestus, her good friend, was speechless towards her. Only Suyi still remembers to feed Hestia on time every day. Okay, but make sure you clean up after you eat. Suyi glanced at the various books scattered all over the sofa and held his forehead. These books are not cheap. Last time when I returned a book, it was found to have oil stains on it. I almost had to pay a large sum of money. Hehehe. Hearing Suyi scolding her, Hestia could only give an awkward but polite smile. But then, like a puppy smelling meat, she looked at Suyi with surprise. This aura is God's gift. Has Hephaestus finally been unable to resist and attacked you? As soon as he finished speaking, Suyi's hand knife gently landed on the forehead of the lowly goddess. It's just normal for me to join Lady Hephaestus's family. Please don't say it in such a strange way. I see. After thinking about it, Hestia suddenly showed a lost look and sighed deeply. Between me and her, did you choose Hephaestus after all? I am so sad. But Suyi didn't buy her trick at all and just glanced at her out of the corner of his eye. I can't imagine why I have to become a member of the family of Lady Hestia, who has never recruited any members since she came to the world, and who doesn't work and relies on friends to help her live a life of idleness in Terraria. The lowly goddess's face suddenly wilted like an eggplant hit by frost. Even if it's true, there's no need to make it so serious. Besides, I don't need a family or anything like that, Hestia said righteously while enjoying the fried potato balls fed by Suyi. You are enough for me. Looking at the lowly goddess eating like a squirrel, Suyi couldn't help but mutter. I always feel like I'm raising a very novel pet. What did you say? Nothing. Goddess, please don't talk while eating. It's unladylike. After finishing both portions of fried potato balls in a flash, Hestia patted her flat belly, which showed no sign of expansion, with contentment and burped. Huh, I'm finally alive. It would be even better if there was a glass of cold juice at this time. Suyi shrugged, turned and walked out the door. Next time I come here, I'll go to the Mistress of Plenty. Hearing Suyi's answer, Hestia was delighted at first. But then he let out a soft cry. Hey, are you leaving now? Suyi stopped, nodded and explained. Lady Hephaestus gave me a few days off so that I could get familiar with my new identity as an adventurer and visit places like the Guild and the Labyrinth. Then I'll consider whether to stay with the clan and become a blacksmith, or to explore the maze. Ah, that's right. Seeing Hestia's stunned look, Suyi added. Of course, I will still come here at this time every day. In fact, Hestia wasn't worried about that. She was just thinking, if Suyi was her own clan. You can personally grant him God's grace, update his ability values, and witness his growth step by step. Unfortunately, now she can't do anything except cheering herself up in her heart. Is there anything I can do for him? When Hestia was alone in the church, she lay on her back on the sofa, mumbling softly. I don't know what she was thinking about, but the lowly goddess suddenly blushed, turned over and buried her face in the pillow. This is too shameful. But, at the same time, Suyi doesn't know what will be waiting for him next time he feeds her. Finally returned to my room, ready to enter the world of Terraria. Chapter 3, Departure. Entering Terraria for the first time. That should be enough. Although it was preparation before the adventure, Suyi did not bring much. An ordinary dagger and a light leather armor. Plus supplies like torches, water bags and dry food. After all, this is not an exploration of a dungeon, which would take several days. If there are no unexpected circumstances, I should be back soon. What's more, the world of Terraria itself has abundant resources to plunder. There are all kinds of ores, treasure chests, and materials dropped by monsters. There will be a reward for the first time you enter, I don't know what it will be. With full of curiosity and anticipation, Suyi confirmed the transmission of the information. The next moment, his figure disappeared out of thin air in the room. After a few bizarre lights and shadows flashed before my eyes, he found himself transported to a beautiful wooded area. The sky is blue and clear, with white clouds lying lazily in the field of vision. There is green grass under your feet and the sound of birds chirping can be heard from time to time. It's indeed a classic opening for Terraria. Suyi did not let down his guard, but instead held the dagger tightly and looked around. But why can't I see the guide? Or am I the only one in this world? Just as he was wondering, lines of text began to appear before his eyes. It was a message sent to him by the system. Rewards for land reclamation are being distributed. You have unlocked the inventory ability. Closing square bracket. You have unlocked the synthesis ability. Closing square bracket. You have unlocked the identification ability. Closing square bracket. You have unlocked the contract ability. Closing square bracket. You obtained a copper dagger, a copper pickaxe, and a copper axe. The series of reward information made Suyi a little dazzled. But he quickly figured out the content of these rewards. The first 3 abilities are easy to understand. They are actually the basic abilities that players have in Terraria. The inventory ability allows Suyi to open a personal inventory with 60 grids of space for storing various props. Items of the same type can be stacked, with a maximum stacking limit of 9,999. And it's not just limited to items in the Terraria world. Suyi tried to put his dagger into the inventory. It was successfully deposited. When you need it, you can take out the weapon with just a thought. Just the ability of the inventory alone is worth it. Suyi thought excitedly. The existence of an inventory means that he can carry a large amount of materials and supplies with him. When exploring dungeons, you can reduce a lot of weight. In the world of Dicuo, there seems to be no space props with similar functions. Even if they exist, they are probably extremely rare and ordinary adventurers and followers simply cannot afford them. The second ability, synthesis, is even more important. Most of the items in the Terraria world can be synthesized into new items. Some compositions require the use of specific workstations. For example, using a furnace, the ore capacity is converted into ingots. There are also some basic items that can be crafted by hand, such as torches, wooden platforms, campfires, etc. Even equipment can be combined with each other to become more advanced props. It can be said that the entire Terraria power system, it is based on the synthesis function. As for the third ability, identification, it was somewhat beyond Suyi's expectations. It allows Suyi to identify items he has obtained, even if they are from other worlds. For example, the metal dagger that Suyi made himself. At this moment, the identification information automatically appeared in the field of vision. Rough iron dagger, great damage 7. Ahahaha. Seeing this merciless evaluation, Suyi scratched his head in embarrassment. In the rarity classification of Terraria, gray is the lowest level, worse than white, which symbolizes ordinary. Generally only low-level weapons with negative attributes, or the junk items caught while fishing will be of great quality. There was no way, even though he had learned forging from Hephaestus for several years. But it is just the entry level, and there is still a long way to go before becoming a master. You can use ordinary ore to make a low-level weapon that is barely usable from scratch. For a novice blacksmith, this is already a very good level of completion. However, using the synthesis ability, I can easily make more advanced equipment. Maybe, I can take care of both the roles of adventurer and blacksmith at the same time. In the world of Terraria, it is very simple to make weapons and protective gear. As long as you have enough materials, you can 100% synthesize the corresponding items. There are no failures or inferior results. The only pity is that all the equipment produced has fixed values. Even if there are more advanced materials, there is no way to produce similar equipment with higher performance. If you can combine synthesis with forging technology. Thinking of this, Suyi shook his head and retracted his thoughts. At his current level, it's too early for this. The last ability is contract. After reading the description of the contract ability, Suyi couldn't help but look surprised. No wonder he didn't see the first NPC in the Terraria world, the guide. It turns out that there are no NPCs in this world at all. Only through contracts can followers be recruited from other worlds. Only then can the original NPC function be realized. Other worlds. Suyi thought about it, except for the Terraria world. Only the earthly world can temporarily meet the needs of contractual capabilities. I don't know when I can travel to the second world. It seemed that he had noticed Suyi's thoughts. The system quickly gave the corresponding information. Defeat the Slime King boss to unlock a new world to travel through. King Slime, a monster boss in the early stages of Terraria. Even with the disaster module, it is still the easiest boss to defeat in the entire game, no doubt about it. Is it enough to just defeat King Slime? Suyi's mind suddenly became active. If this were in the Terraria game, King Slime would be a walking treasure bag for him. There is no pressure in defeating this boss. But this is not a game, but a real journey to Terraria. The originally welfare boss might become very difficult to defeat. After thinking for a moment, Suyi quickly formulated the next action plan. Let's first adapt to the rhythm of fighting in this world. By the way, let's see if we can find a treasure chest and get some resources. Chapter 4 Molten Fire Festival and Supporter Girl. As the afterglow of sunset shines through the windowsill, Suyi's figure suddenly appeared out of nowhere in his room. Compared to what it looked like when I first entered the world of Terraria, he looked a little embarrassed at this time, and his expression was a little confused. But soon, he calmed down and sighed helplessly. I didn't expect to fall into the rockfall trap. Just now, he accidentally stepped on the trap pedal while exploring the underground cave. If it was just a mechanism like poison darts, he could still grit his teeth and hold on. But when Suyi heard the rumbling sound of a huge rock falling above his head, I was mentally prepared for my first death in the Terraria world. The result was as he expected. He died very cleanly and was sent home for free. Fortunately, my inventory is almost full, so I didn't lose too much. Suyi opened the inventory and looked at the various props and materials filled to the brim. The depression caused by death in my heart suddenly disappeared. This exploration was very fruitful. Except for some useless lumps of soil and stones. The inventory is full of items that can come in handy. This includes materials dropped by defeated monsters, such as gel. There are also resources collected from the environment, such as wood, ores, and herbs. Of course, props from treasure chests are also indispensable. Terraria's treasure chest can contain a variety of items. The rewards included will vary depending on the environment. The treasure chest that Suyi found this time was the most common underground treasure chest. There are some weak healing potions, bombs, and several bottles of magic potions with different functions. In addition, there is a rare reward, the Cloud Bottle. Cloud in a Bottle Blue grants the wearer one extra jump. Simply put, after equipping this accessory, Suyi can perform a double jump. This is a magical skill that even a man who can perform Dimension Slash has not mastered. In Terraria, there are many accessories with similar magical effects. A maximum of 5 accessories and 3 protective gear can be active at the same time. By Aurario's standards, this Cloud Bottle is at least a magical item. The estimated value is definitely not less than 1 million fares. Of course, Suyi had no intention of selling it. It is not enough for his own use, so how could he let the money go to waste? It's already evening. Glancing at the sky outside the window, Suyi lazily took off his leather armor and began to organize his inventory. Although Hephaestus's family also has considerable assets in the Tower of Babel. However, those are shops that can only be occupied by blacksmiths who have the qualifications to open independent shops. His current residence is just a small house in the civilian area of Aurario. In this maze city where every inch of land is valuable, rent is naturally not cheap. Suyi needs to pay 10,000 Ferris every month. On weekdays, he relies on repairing low-level equipment for new adventurers to barely cover daily expenses. Now that he has become an official member of the family, he naturally has to make other plans. The space here is still too small. When I have more money, I will definitely move to a more spacious studio. The best choice, naturally, is to go to the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel is a sky-high tower standing in the central area of Aurario. Looking across the entire maze city, there is no building taller than this one. Its importance is beyond doubt. The entire Tower of Babel is the lid, built on the underground city. In other words, for the families and adventurers who want to explore the dungeon. The Tower of Babel is an adventure destination that you must visit. Because of this, there are many shops selling equipment and adventure supplies in Babel Tower. As a family of Hephaestus famous for forging, they naturally have many stores. However, not everyone can open a store under the name Hephaestus. It concerns the reputation of the goddess of forging. Only blacksmiths recognized by the clan are qualified to brand the clan's emblem on the equipment they sell. As for how to gain Hephaestus's recognition, we have to mention an event that only Hephaestus's family will hold. 3 days later, the Molten Fire Festival will be held. This is a celebration spontaneously held by the followers of the goddess of Forge. However, for some reasons, it has also attracted the attention of many clans and high-level adventurers. During this celebration, Hephaestus would evaluate the works presented by the members of the Familia. If one can gain the approval of the goddess of forging, it will undoubtedly be a great affirmation and publicity for the blacksmith. The clan will also allocate resources to recognized members. For example, using the Tower of Babel's store for free for a period of time, delegating forging orders from other families, etc. If you want to gain the goddess's approval, ordinary mineral weapons may not be enough. While thinking, Zhi used his synopsis ability to create some items. For example, the most basic wooden workbench and a furnace that can smelt lower-level ores. And anvils that can be used to craft metal ingots into equipment. These are workstations that add to your crafting list. There will be more facilities such as Hellforge, Mithril Anvil, etc. in the future. But these things alone have already filled Zhi's cabin. Based on the materials already in the inventory, Zhi can only synthesize a few items. A more practical one is the torch, made of wood plus gel. There are many types of torches in Terraria, which can emit different colors of light. And unless it is thrown directly into the pool, it will not be extinguished even if it rains. As for the duration, it is so shocking that it is infinite. In other words, as long as there is no external influence. The torch that Zhi rubs can burn until the world is destroyed. But in Terraria, such things are just the lowest level consumables. The gel needed to make torches can be obtained by killing slime monsters. During today's exploration, Zhi killed a lot of slimes. As the weakest monster, its combat power is naturally very strong and it is very easy to deal with. As long as he doesn't panic too much, Zhi can easily deal with multiple slimes at the same time. I wonder if I can accumulate great achievements by adventuring in Terraria. After we kill the Slime King, let's go find Hephaestus and update our ability values. In the short term, Zhi does not plan to frequently visit his goddess to renew her favor. Killing weak enemies will only accumulate minimal achievements. Only by fighting against powerful boss-level enemies can you obtain a large number of feats. In other words, frying fish is useless, you have to challenge yourself. Fortunately, Zhi will not die in the Terraria world, and the cost of trial and error is very low. Because he had died once, Zhi would not be able to enter Terraria until tomorrow evening. So the next morning, he decided to go to the Adventurers Guild to register his information. For Terraria, where adventurers gather. The Adventurers Guild is almost equivalent to a semi-official organization. In addition to the inquiry window in the guild hall, there is also a gold exchange, where the spoils can be directly exchanged for ferry. And the Appraisal Institute, to appraise the treasures found in the dungeon. These are all important places related to the adventurer's career. However, when Zhi was about to step into the door of the Adventurers Guild, suddenly a small voice came from the side. Big brother over there, big brother with black hair. Black hair is not common in Terraria. So Zhi quickly realized that someone was calling him. Looking back, he saw a girl, even smaller than Hestia, running towards him. Nice to meet you, big brother. Are you an adventurer? Do you need any support? Chapter 5, Survival of the Weak. A moment later, the two of them, holding freshly baked potato balls in their hands, sat on the bench at the entrance of the guild. Well, I'm really grateful to Big Brother for buying me snacks. The dwarf girl named Lilyluka smiled awkwardly. But it seems you haven't answered the previous question yet. Zhi then realized that he had probably developed a habit of feeding the baby. Seeing a creature even smaller than Hestia, I couldn't help but feed it a portion of fried potato balls. After thinking about it, he said casually. Supporter, I really need an assistant. Huh, really? This answer made Lily very excited, and her amber eyes sparkled with excitement. Her eyes couldn't help but scan the emblem on Zhi's chest. That is the symbol of the famous craftsman family in the city, the Hephaestus family. For a supporter like her who has no fighting ability and is bullied. If only I could get by with a member of Hephaestus's family. It is definitely more reliable than following some adventurers from a small clan with no background. And Lily also has her own little thoughts. Since they are the followers of the forging goddess. This black-haired big brother might have some high-end equipment to protect himself. You should know that the equipment produced by Hephaestus's family has always been known for its excellence and high cost. If she could steal one or two and resell them, she would be rich. While thinking, Lily patted her chest without hesitation and recommended herself to Zhi. Lily is an experienced supporter. Big brother, are you willing to take Lily on an adventure in the dungeon? The petite girl looked at Zhi expectantly with innocent and pure eyes. The latter responded without hesitation. It's okay. But I haven't registered yet. Lilyluka was stunned for a moment, as if thinking about the meaning of this sentence. Not registered, isn't my brother an official adventurer yet? Just as you said. Damn it, I thought it was a handsome, rich, fat fish. Unexpectedly, he is a completely new rookie adventurer. There was a barely perceptible hint of disappointment in Lily's eyes, but she concealed it very well. Then Big Brother must want to go to the guild to register as an adventurer, right? I can wait outside the door until Big Brother finishes the formalities. Suyi looked at Lily thoughtfully. It seems that even if he hadn't met Belle, this kid would have been a habitual offender entrapping newcomers. Such a bad kid needs to be properly educated. If she really attacks me, it would be an opportunity. After thinking about it, Suyi looked puzzled. You won't be coming with me to the guild hall. Hearing this, the dwarf girl scratched her head and revealed a pitiful expression. The hall is full of aggressive adventurers. If a weak supporter like Lily appears in their field of vision, she will be bullied. In fact, Lily was just afraid that her identity would be exposed by other adventurers in the guild. And the guild staff recognized him and reminded Suyi to stay away from them. However, her words were not exaggerated. The status of supporters among adventurers was indeed very low. It is common for adventurers to exploit their supporters and delay paying their share of the adventure and remuneration. Lily suffered the most and had many similar experiences. I see. Suyi nodded and didn't force it. Then you have to wait outside for a while. I will complete the registration as soon as possible. After reaching out and touching Lily's little head covered by the hood, Suyi turned and left, following the crowd into the Adventurers Guild. After his figure completely disappeared, Lily stopped smiling and murmured softly. What a strange guy. If it is another new adventurer, the supporter's request will be approved. They will also immediately set rules in a firm manner to determine the distribution of profits when exploring the dungeon. But Suyi seemed to be completely unconcerned and didn't take the matter to heart at all. He even took her to the stall to buy some fried potato balls as soon as possible. This was the first time for Lily, who had experienced being exploited by a team of black-hearted adventurers and had to pay for adventure supplies out of her own pocket. Do you really want to betray him during your adventure like before? There's nothing we can do about it. Lily's gaze gradually dimmed, and her eyes lost their luster. Who made Lily so weak? If she wants to survive in Orario, she must do whatever it takes. Adventurers Guild, business window. Hello, I'm here to register as an adventurer. The clear and crisp voice of the young man made Aina look up from the pile of documents. It is not difficult to tell from her pointed, slender ears that curve upward. This adventure and guild teller lady is half-elf. Aina's eyes fell on the young man in front of her, and she had already made a judgment in her mind. It's a child I haven't seen before, and his race is probably human. In terms of human age, he should have just reached adulthood, right? Is it really okay for you to explore a dangerous dungeon at such a young age? Although many thoughts of wanting to dissuade him flashed through my mind. However, Aina still put on a professional smile and took out a form. Okay, can you write the common language? Of course, I can also write for you. Don't bother, I can do it myself. Suyi said casually, took the form and began to fill it out familiarly. This surprised Aina quite a bit. She had seen many powerful adventurers in the guild. But it is rare to see someone who can write so fluently. After all, most of the guys who can become adventurers are uneducated and rough people. In most cases, it is sufficient for the adventurer to write his or her own name. You will pass the test if your vocabulary reserve is enough to understand the announcements on the notice board in the hall. Only clerks like her who have been going to the school district since childhood have a higher level of education. The teenager took less than 5 minutes to complete a registration form. Suyi, human, age, 16, so she has just reached adulthood. Aina's eyes barely noticeably passed over the form in her hand and secretly observed Suyi in front of the window. Even by the elves' aesthetic standards, this young man could be considered handsome. However, when browsing the family member column, Aina couldn't help but exclaim. You've already joined the clan. And they are the followers of Lady Hephaestus. In her impression, most of the members of Hephaestus's family, who were famous for forging, were muscular blacksmiths. Although there are women like the one-eyed master, they are just exceptions. That's right. Suyi nodded, curious. Any questions? No, sorry. I'm just a little surprised. Aina quickly shook her head and continued to scan the following content. After a moment, she had a general understanding of Suyi in her mind, so she looked at him again. The information you've filled out is very complete and there is nothing to add. But before you register as an official adventurer, you need to choose an adventure consultant. Adventure consultant. Noticing the puzzled look from the boy, Aina coughed lightly and explained. To prevent new adventurers from losing too many lives in the dungeon due to lack of common sense and other issues. The guild has set up the Adventure Advisor mechanism in the hope of reducing such casualties. The adventure consultant will give corresponding advice and information based on the progress of the new adventurer. There are currently several staff members in charge of this matter, including. Suddenly, Suyi interrupted Aina's words. I would like Miss Agina to be my adventure consultant, is that okay? Huh, I am indeed in charge of adventure consulting as well. The half-elf lady was stunned for a moment and answered subconsciously. But there are other experienced seniors in the guild. You can consider it before making a decision. No, Suyi smiled and confirmed it in a decisive tone. I believe Miss Agina. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 6. Suyi said nothing, just showing off his wealth. What are you daydreaming about? The guild employee girl with short pink hair patted her colleague's shoulder. She had just left her workstation for something, and when she came back she saw Aina in a daze. This is very rare for Aina, who is always very serious at work. Ah, nothing. The half-elf girl suddenly came to her senses and put away the form with a guilty conscience. Although she was very quick, her colleague and friend still caught a glimpse of some of the content. Hey, a registration form for new adventurers. Misha looked at Aina thoughtfully, with a rather playful gaze. It seems like you've met someone you really like. Whose child is he? No, what are you talking about? Still trying to make excuses, your ears are clearly turning red. Aina subconsciously touched her pointed ears which felt a little hot and sighed resignedly. He is a young man who has just become a member of Hephaestus, Familia. He chose me as his adventure advisor without hesitation. Hearing her friend explain the reason, Misha couldn't help but let out a drawn-out sound. Isn't this great? It would be a great sense of accomplishment to witness with your own eyes the newcomers you have led into the adventurer's path grow step by step into strong men who can stand on their own. That's what I said. Agina shook her head with a complicated expression and did not explain further. In fact, she has served as a consultant to many new adventurers and has invested a lot of energy and emotion in this work. However, the chances of new adventurers encountering accidents in dungeons are still too high. Almost more than half of the new adventurers lost contact when Agina served as an adventure consultant. Most of these people were buried forever in the dark dungeon. After that, Agina rarely asked to be an adventuring advisor. I don't know how far he will go. After putting Suyi's information registration form into the filing cabinet she was responsible for, Aina felt a long-lost sense of motivation. In order to respond to the boy's trust, she must also become a qualified adventure consultant. When he comes to the guild next time, we can set up a time to have a serious discussion. Meanwhile, on the other side, after meeting up with Lily who was waiting at the door, Suyi gave instructions to explore the dungeon. Since this is my first time exploring, I'll only walk around the very shallow floors and come back. Try to leave the dungeon before dark. By then, Suyi's death penalty should also be gone. You can seamlessly transition from dungeons to exploration of the Terraria world. As for rest, the time flows faster in the Terraria world, so you can go there to rest. Understood, Captain. Because they have formed a team, Lily's way of addressing Suyi has also changed. However, after she responded, she looked at Suyi's outfit with some confusion. But, did the captain really not forget to bring the tools for exploration? Even for a short exploration of less than a day, at least some basic props are needed, such as torches. Considering that Suyi had just registered as an adventurer, a 100% fresh rookie, Lilyluka couldn't help but feel a little worried. Whether or not he could get any benefit from Suyi was another matter. We were thankful that the previous explorations were successfully completed. There's no need to worry about that. Suyi glanced at the inventory, which still had dozens of torches in reserve, as well as practical items such as ropes and shurikens found in treasure chests. Really? Lily muttered quietly, clearly not quite believing it. Because Suyi was wearing only a set of light leather armor and a dagger at his waist. There is no longer any room to carry supplies. Forget it, we're just exploring the first floor of the dungeon, there shouldn't be any accidents. After comforting herself in her heart, Lily put on the huge adventurer's backpack and quickly followed Suyi. The first floor of the dungeon is considered the newbie village for Orario adventurers. The passages, forks, crossroads and other structures composed of blue walls and ceilings are intricately arranged to form a maze space. In this maze, you will encounter monsters that suddenly appear from time to time, goblins. Slimes and goblins are indeed the most classic low-level monsters in the other world. Seeing the short monster blocking his way, Suyi couldn't help but sigh. There are also monsters called goblins in the Terraria world. However, those goblins are much stronger than the few soldiers in front of them who can only attack with their sharp teeth and claws. The goblins in Terraria not only crush these small fry in terms of numbers. They even have a clear division of labor-like adventurers. Goblin warrior, goblin archer, goblin mage. Once certain conditions are met, the goblins will gather their forces and launch an invasion. Even Suyi felt a headache when he thought of the overwhelming goblin army. In comparison, the goblins in front of him had relatively clear eyes. After a few rounds, Suyi killed the goblins with the dagger in his hand. The bodies of the dead goblins slowly melted into the floor of the maze. Only a pool of blood and a few broken blue-purple crystals were left on the spot. Captain is awesome. He killed these goblins so easily. Lily, who had been hiding outside the battlefield, rushed over with shining eyes. She didn't care that there was blood on the crystals, and picked them up and put them in her backpack. These crystals are one of the most important loot when exploring a dungeon, magic stones. The so-called magic stone is the crystallization of magic obtained from dungeon monsters. It can be used as a gold exchange item and can be directly exchanged for money in the guild's gold exchange office. It can also be processed into various magic stone props, such as the magic stone lamp, that uses magic stone as energy. In addition, there are also uses such as magic stone lighters and magic stone refrigerators. As a city built on a dungeon, Terraria's demand for magic stones is also astonishing. Therefore, magic stones have become the main source of income for adventurers when exploring dungeons. Is this the magic stone? It's a little small. Suyi also picked up a piece of magic stone fragment from the ground and compared it. It was only the size of a fingernail. Because this is only the shallow area of the dungeon, Lily explained as she packed her backpack. Monsters on floors 1 to 4 only drop magic stones of this specification, and the money you can exchange for them is very little. A small piece of magic stone like this can probably only be exchanged for 100 ferris. Suyi calculated the purchasing power and sighed. It's really hard for ordinary new adventurers. Although 100 ferris can buy 3 servings of fried potato balls, it cannot buy a decent piece of equipment. Even the ordinary iron dagger in Suyi's hand would cost at least 2,000 ferris. We also have to consider the damage and maintenance of the equipment, which is another expense. Fortunately, Suyi has his own Terraria world with him, so he has no shortage of equipment and even has excess production capacity. The area ahead is unlit, take this. After clearing the goblins blocking the way, Suyi observed the terrain, took out 2 torches from the inventory, and threw one to Lily. Is this a magic torch? Seeing the flame burning steadily on the torch, Lily couldn't help but exclaim. Even when thrown into the air, the flame on the torch never flickered, always maintaining the maximum brightness. What else could this be but a magic torch? In the market of the Tower of Babel, such a magic torch starts at least 10,000 ferris. Magic torch? Well, sort of. As a member of Hephaestus's family, Suyi naturally knew about this kind of props. But the Terraria torch, he made by hand, is much stronger than the magic torch. A nuclear-powered torch with infinite burning time, are you afraid of it? It's just the first floor of the dungeon. There's no need to use such a precious item, right? Lily said in a low voice, but her little thoughts in her heart became active. It seems that her initial guess was correct, Suyi is indeed a big fish. And if she had seen correctly, he had taken out the 2 torches out of thin air. In other words, Suyi might have extremely precious, space props, on him. Thinking of this, the dwarf girl couldn't help but licking her lips. The amber eyes reflected a cunning light under the light of the torch. We must get this space prop. Chapter 7, Pay for the sins you committed with your body. The subsequent exploration was smooth sailing, although you may occasionally run into groups of goblins. For novice adventurers who fight alone, there is a certain amount of pressure. But Suyi can handle it easily. In addition to being relatively calm in mentality. Another key factor is the weapon he used. Shuriken, white damage 10. The shuriken, item brought from the Terraria world. It is a very cheap and practical throwing weapon. Not only can it be found in treasure chests, but you can also get it by breaking bottles and jars on the roadside. Suyi's inventory contains nearly 3-digit shuriken items. The damage is also considerable, a full 10 points. You should know that the normal damage of an iron dagger is only 9 points. Not to mention, these shurikens also have a penetrating effect. Can kill multiple enemies at once. Apart from the fact that it cannot be recycled, it is a perfect prop for the early days of land reclamation. But this thing is also quite cheap, and you can buy it at will after you recruit followers with the merchant function. But, recruitment. After killing the goblin in front of him, Suyi stood there, lost in thought. The NPCs in the Terraria world undertake a very important function, shops. Different NPCs have different kinds of shops, if you lack one. Although it is not completely impossible to explore further, it will be very difficult. It is precisely because of these NPCs who can sell goods infinitely that the resources of the Terraria world can be said to be endless. However, Suyi's Terraria world can only obtain store functions by recruiting followers by himself. Captain, there is an open space ahead. Do you want to take a rest? Just then, Lily's voice came from behind. Following the direction she pointed, Suyi indeed saw a sunken terrain. There are traces of other adventurers left inside, such as the embers of a campfire. All right, it's time to recover some strength. Suyi nodded in agreement. Although he has not yet exhausted his physical strength to the limit. However, in such a dangerous environment, it is better to keep some spare energy. I didn't expect to be able to get here on our first exploration. The captain is amazing. While counting the magic stone fragments in her backpack, Lily cast an admiring look at Suyi. This is already a relatively deep location on the first floor of the dungeon. It takes most new adventurers several days to get here. Yeah, Suyi didn't feel anything. If he can't even deal with the enemies on the first floor, how can he survive in Terraria? The monsters in Terraria are much more dangerous than the enemies in the dungeon. When Suyi thought about the boss he would have to deal with later, he couldn't help but get a headache. I don't know how many times I have to die before I can complete Terraria, Calamity. Captain, I want to see if there is any material that can be collected around. Lily suddenly raised her hand to apply. Can I gather in the dungeon? Of course. Lily nodded quickly and took out a pickaxe and sickle from her backpack. Some materials that can be collected will be randomly refreshed in the dungeon, such as ores, potions, etc. It is said that there are springs with special effects on certain floors. The main source of materials for the Hephaestus clan, where the captain is the magic ore that is refreshed in the dungeon. If we can dig up rare minerals like mithril and adamantium, we will be rich. Mithril, adamantium. These two minerals also seem to exist in Terraria, and they are of a more advanced type. Retracting his thoughts, Suyi instructed Lily. Go ahead, and be safe. Hearing Suyi's words, Lily's expression was a little complicated, as if she was hesitating about something. But in the end, she still carried her bag and left Suyi's sight. A quarter of an hour later, Suyi, who was resting, raised his eyebrows and felt the ground shaking slightly. Even a novice adventurer like him sensed an ominous sign. In an instant, dozens of goblins came from the other side of the maze as if they were deliberately attracted. After discovering Suyi resting in the deep pit, he immediately rushed over screaming and waving his arms. The number is a bit large. Faced with this situation, Suyi frowned. Melee weapons and shurikens alone would certainly not be enough to stop these enemies from rushing in front of you. There is another way, that is to use bombs. The bomb opened from the treasure chest can cause an astonishing 100 points of range explosion damage. However, in such a small space, it is hard to say whether you will hurt yourself by accident. Sighing, Suyi looked towards a high platform. Lily, why are you doing this? The dwarf girl who originally said she was going to collect materials appeared in the shadows. Quote. Facing Suyi's questioning, Lily responded in a low voice. With so many goblins, even the captain can't escape unscathed, right? As long as you can hand over that space item, I will put down the rope for escape. That's not necessary. Seeing that groups of goblins were about to rush in front of us. Suyi snorted coldly, exerted force with his legs, and leapt into the air. This height was not enough to escape from the goblins' encirclement. But suddenly a stream of white air appeared out of nowhere under his feet. Let Suyi use the force again and complete his second jump in the air. It's the extra jump provided by the cloud in a bottle ornament. What? Seeing Suyi jumping towards the platform, Lily was startled and wanted to run away in panic. However, 2 cold rays had already attacked from behind, and 2 shurikens directly pierced her legs. Phew! Accompanied by gushing blood and severe pain. Lily finally couldn't help but stumble to the ground, looking at Suyi who was walking towards her after landing in embarrassment. Sorry. At this point, do you think an apology will still work? Suyi concealed the gentleness on his face and stared at the petite girl who was curled up in a ball with a cold expression. The situation just now, if it wasn't him but an ordinary new adventurer. I'm afraid I'll die under the siege of those goblins. Bad boys like you must be severely punished. You should pay for the sins you committed with your body. As he spoke, Suyi activated his 4th ability, which he had never used before, on the frightened Lily. Contract. Chapter 8, The First Contractor, The Returning Loki Family. It was the first time Suyi used the contract ability, and he didn't know what would happen. It's a good opportunity to test it out with the dwarf girl in front of me. While exerting his ability, a golden light shone in Suyi's eyes. As if frightened, Lily, who had just shown fear on her face, gradually became confused. One of the following conditions must be met to conclude a contract. Target voluntarily concludes a contract. The target is in a dying state. A few lines of hints appeared in front of Suyi, and he suddenly understood. I see. The contract has not been completed yet, which means Lily still has some resistance in her heart. Suyi snorted coldly and pressed his weapon against Lily's neck. If you continue to resist, I will throw you into the pile of goblins below. Thinking of the fate of being bitten and torn to pieces by the monster, Lily shuddered and had to accept Suyi's contract. At the moment the contract was completed, a large amount of information flooded into the minds of both people at the same time. You have successfully completed a contract. You can now view the status of contractors and manage them. The contractor will absolutely obey you and will never betray you. After digesting the new information, Suyi nodded with satisfaction. He was originally a little worried that Lily would tell others what happened today. I didn't expect that the contract comes with the effects of absolute obedience and never betrayal. Doesn't this mean that as long as the contract is successfully concluded, you can do whatever you want to the contractor? Thinking of this, Suyi couldn't help but look at Lily's petite body. Then she realized that the wound caused by the shuriken was still bleeding. Forget it, we are one now anyway, just use this. Suyi took out a bottle of light red potion from the inventory without thinking. Like the cloud in a bottle, this is also an item that comes from a treasure chest. Weak healing potion white instantly restores 50 HP and grants drug resistance status, which lasts for 60 seconds. This is the lowest level healing potion in Terraria. Suyi was not sure about the effect of the healing potion in the wrong world. However, this potion can instantly heal about half of the health in the early stage. The effect should be similar when used on low-level adventurers. And it recovers instantly, no waiting required. Suyi opened 4 bottles of weak healing potions from the treasure chest and didn't feel bad about using them. Because this thing, like a torch, is a cheap consumable that can be purchased. However, even if you have enough healing potions, you cannot use them infinitely. While the drug resistance status persists, health potions will not take effect. This time can be reduced by the effects of some accessories, but that is another matter. This is a potion. Lily took the bottle of red liquid from Suyi with some disbelief. Can I really use something this precious? Just like the fine equipment made by Hephaestus's familia. Magic potions such as magic potions and elixirs with special effects. It is also a very popular and in-demand item in the adventurer market of Babel Tower. A bottle of magic potion that can quickly restore physical strength and replenish status, and sometimes even reverse the situation of the battle and save the adventurer's life. Because they are consumables, the price of potions is not as expensive as equipment. But it is not a luxury that every adventurer can afford. Lily looked at the life potion in her hand with a complicated expression. If I let you use it, just use it with confidence. There's no need to question my words. Suyi squatted down and pinched the soft cheeks of the little human girl. Heal your injuries quickly and don't waste time. I understand. Lily nodded vigorously and mustered up the courage to drink the potion in her hand. In a few moments, the wound on his leg healed at an astonishing speed. The pain disappeared almost in the blink of an eye, and even Lily herself didn't react. I'm afraid the effect of this potion is better than the elixir produced by the Hehehe clan, right? Yeah. Hearing this, Suyi asked curiously. Have you tried any other potions? No. Lily waved her hands quickly. I've only heard about the potion. How could a low-level supporter like her afford potions? In the following time, Suyi patiently used shuriken to clear out the group of goblins. Lily also worked very hard to clean up the battlefield. After all, these enemies were deliberately attracted by her. That's all for today's exploration. It's time to go back. After killing all the monsters, Suyi wiped the sweat from his forehead and glanced at the system interface. In another half an hour, the death penalty will disappear and you can explore Terraria again. Okay, then. After putting the last piece of magic stone fragment into her backpack, Lily seemed to be hesitant to speak. What plans does the master have after we leave the dungeon? First, don't call me master. Suyi glanced at her and corrected her. Although this name is correct, it is too conspicuous in the world of Earth. A Soma familia referring to a member of the Hestia familia as master. If this gets out, there might be a war between the clans. Just like before, just call me captain. Also, do you have a place to stay in Terraria? Lily lowered her head and answered sheepishly. No, I used to be able to pay for cheap hotels, but I'm really broke lately, so. That's why he attacked Suyi, but was counterattacked by the latter and signed the contract. That's perfect. You can live with me from now on, even though there's only a storage room available right now. Once we move to a bigger house, I'll consider allocating you a separate room. Besides, Suyi suddenly frowned, as if he realized something. From the depths of the maze, near the entrance to the second floor, came the sound of rhythmic footsteps. Then, a team of high-level adventurers, all exuding a powerful aura, appeared in their sight. Seeing the appearance of several of the adventurers, Lily suddenly became nervous and whispered a reminder. Captain, they are. I know, these people are Loki's familia. Suyi reached out and touched Lily's head, his eyes meeting the many gazes directed at him. The blonde dwarf adventurer walking in front is Finn, the leader of the Loki family. The elven magician who followed closely behind was the city's strongest magician, deputy leader Livelia, also known as the 9 Magic Princesses. Next is Zhongji, the dwarf Grace, the Amazon sisters, the fierce wolf Bert, and just as this group of adventurers, who seemed to have just returned from an expedition to the dungeon, were about to pass by Suyi, the latter suddenly raised his voice and spoke loudly. Ms. Ice Wallenstein, are you interested in visiting the Molten Fire Festival in 2 days? Chapter 9: The Curiosity and Invitation of the Revenge Princess. Suyi's words made the Loki clan members who passed by slow down their pace. Icy, do you know this boy? The white-haired werewolf youth with a lightning tattoo on his face asked lazily. Behind him, a swordsman girl wearing pale blue light armor, with blonde hair and golden eyes, shook her head slightly. I don't seem to know him. But, Molten Fire Festival, I am very interested. S. Wallenstein, a human girl who was given the title of Sword Princess by the gods and belongs to Loki's family. It is said that she has some fairy blood, so her beauty is not inferior to that of goddesses. In addition, she is also known as the strongest female swordsman in the labyrinth city of Terraria. A household name among adventurers, a celebrity-level existence. Although she herself never cared about such things. Don't waste too much time. This expedition took quite some time, and everyone is anxious to get back and rest. The voice of Captain Finn came from the front. Because of the height of the dwarfs, you can only hear their voices but not see them. Icy nodded slightly and walked towards Suyi. Are you a member of Hephaestus's familia? Although the words were questionable, there was no doubt in the tone. As perceptive as Sword Princess is, she has already discovered the clan emblem on Suyi's chest. Adventurers, especially melee adventurers, will come into contact with the followers of the goddess of Forge. And for some reasons, Ice often deals with Hephaestus's family. That's right. Suyi smiled and admitted his identity. My first contact with Sword Lady went unexpectedly smoothly. He was actually just trying it out, and even if the other party didn't respond, he wouldn't lose anything. Now it seems that Ice does not have the arrogance or overbearing nature of a high-level adventurer. Outside of combat, she is no different from an ordinary girl, except that she is a little silly. Of course, this was a judgment made based on Suyi's understanding of her character. Ms. Icy has just returned from the dungeon expedition, so she may not know about the Molten Fire Festival yet. After organizing his words, Suyi said to the blonde girl in front of him. Icy nodded calmly. An expedition is a lengthy campaign into the depths of a dungeon. Usually, it is necessary to gather dozens or hundreds of adventurers from the entire clan or even multiple clans. Carry a large amount of supplies and gear to explore and fight in the depths of more than 30 floors of the dungeon. This expedition lasted for dozens of days. Ice, who had just returned from the dungeon, naturally couldn't be the first to know about the Molten Fire Festival held by Hephaestus's family. Because the Molten Fire Festival is an internal activity of the clan. Although outsiders are not prohibited from participating, a family member is required to serve as a guarantor. This is also the purpose of Suyi's invitation. If Miss Icy is interested in the Molten Fire Festival, you can use my recommendation. The blonde swordsman girl looked thoughtful. Perhaps he remembered the captain's order, don't waste time. She agreed quickly. Thank you for your trouble. Seeing that Icy agreed, Suyi's face also showed some joy. I didn't expect that I could close the gap with this, Sword Princess, so easily. You're welcome, because my work will also be included in this festival. If I can get the support of Miss Sword Princess, I will definitely get good reviews. Are you a blacksmith too? I guess so. After a pause, Suyi added meaningfully. But my forging method is a little different from other craftsmen. Terra Tech, boy. These words finally made Icy curious about Suyi. The reason why she wanted to visit the Molten Festival was because she wanted to see if there were any suitable backup weapons. Although her fighting ability is very strong, the weapons in her hands are often damaged. Because Icy possesses a very special skill, the Revenge Princess. This skill allows Icy to increase her attack significantly when fighting against monster-type enemies. And it is further strengthened when facing dragon monsters. Even the gods were amazed by this skill, calling it one of the most powerful offensive skills in the history of the Netherworld. However, due to this, most weapons cannot withstand the load of this skill and are easily damaged. Even a magic sword worth tens of millions of ferrous and possessing the property of indestructibility can be damaged. Because of this incident, Icy, as a LV5 adventurer, has a lot of debts. Almost every expedition requires a replacement of a spare weapon. I'll be having dinner at the Hostess of Plenty these days. You can come find me before the festival starts. After thinking for a while, Icy asked the boy in front of her. What your name? Suyi. Using the pronunciation of the common language, Suyi spelled out his name. Yeah, I remember it. Icy's expression did not change much. After saying goodbye, she returned to her clan's expedition team. Seeing her come back, the wheat-skinned Amazon sisters quickly surrounded her and asked about Suyi with great curiosity. That boy just now looked pretty good. I really want to eat him up in one bite. Is he an acquaintance of yours, Icy-chan? I didn't know him before this. So he took the initiative to strike up a conversation. Tisk, 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 these new adventurers are really bold. That's right, she looks like a level 1 novice, but she dares to flirt with our sword princess. Just this courage alone is much stronger than that of a guy with wolf ears. Shut up, what does it have to do with me? Bert, who was inexplicably criticized by the Amazon sisters, glared at them. Afterwards, the expedition group of Loki's family left the site amid laughter and joy. After the maze became completely quiet, Suyi also patted Lily's head. We should go back too. Chapter 10 Lily's Contract Skills. Hey, is this the captain's home? After cautiously stepping into the room, Lily looked around curiously. Although it is filled with various sundries, forging tools and materials. But overall it is not dirty or messy, there is a sense of orderly messiness. After returning from the dungeon, the two went to the guild first. The magic stone fragments obtained today were exchanged for more than 8,000 fares at the gold exchange office. Considering the first day results for a new adventurer, it was pretty good. However, Suyi was not satisfied with this. This money was nothing to him. The price of a slightly better low-level weapon is far more than this number. As a member of Hephaestus's family, you can't set your sights too low. Put your things aside, we're going to another place later. As he spoke, Suyi called out the system and opened Lily's information interface. There is not much content above, which is mainly divided into two parts, management and skills. The management page allows Suyi to control the permissions of the contractors. For example, whether one can enter and exit a certain world or use certain items. In addition, functions can also be assigned. That is, you can designate the contractor to serve as the NPC role of Terraria. And get the corresponding store features. Currently, there is only one function that Suyi can be assigned, and that is, businessman. This is the most common merchant NPC in Terraria, selling some basic supplies. For example, torches, ropes, weak healing potions, etc. Of course there are some more practical tools. Like a mining helmet that glows and a piggy bank that provides extra storage space. Different from the adventurer market in Babel Tower. The currency used in Terraria's shops is gold, silver, and copper coins produced in the world. Goods are in unlimited supply and their prices will not increase. Most of the things Suyi got from the treasure chest can be bought in the store. However, items such as enhancement potions and accessories are not for sale. Do you want to designate Lilyluka's role as a merchant? Closing square bracket. This contractor has the skill of behind-the-scenes supporter, and there will be additional bonuses when taking on this role. There's a bonus. Seeing the prompt in front of him, Suyi raised his eyebrows but did not confirm it immediately. Instead, he first glanced at the effects of Lily's skills. Behind-the-scenes supporter, contract skill, grants the contractor 50 inventory slots, and gains an additional 50 inventory slots when serving as a merchant. It turns out that after signing a contract, the contract skills will be activated. Suyi browsed the skill information, thoughtful. As expected of a professional supporter, after becoming a merchant, Lily's inventory space is even larger than his. Lily, how do you feel now? After completing the assignment, Suyi turned his gaze to Lily who was sitting quietly on the side. A lot of information suddenly came out. The dwarf girl rubbed her temple and looked a little exhausted. But she quickly digested the information and breathed a sigh of relief. I now have the function of a merchant. As long as I have money, I can buy all kinds of props. The captain can also open the shopping interface from me. That's what I got. Because Lily didn't know that Suyi had a system, the description was a bit vague. However, the latter knew what was going on as soon as he heard it and started trying it immediately. I see. As long as you are within a certain range of Lily, you can open the store page. Soon, a window full of dazzling items appeared in front of Suyi. Above are the expected items, and prices. Torch, 50 copper each. Weak healing potion, 3 silver coins per bottle. Weak magic potion, 1 silver coin per bottle. Wooden arrows, 5 copper coins each. Shuriken, 15 copper coins each. Rope, 10 copper coins per piece. Insect net, 25 silver coins each. Piggy bank, 1 gold coin each. Mining helmet, 4 gold coins each. In addition to this, there are still many items that have not been unlocked. The sale will only take place at a specific time, under specific circumstances, or when certain conditions are met. Suyi flipped through his inventory and found that his total assets were 0. After all, I died once and lost all my money. Suyi shook his head helplessly and closed the store page. The penalty for death is more than just being unable to enter the Terraria world. All the coins on your body will also fall off. Compared to some games where all your equipment and inventory will be lost after death. This punishment is already very light. However, in order to accumulate wealth, it is better to avoid death in the future. After setting Lily's permissions to can enter the Terraria world, Suyi took her little hand and disappeared. The next moment, 2 figures suddenly appeared in an open space in the woods. Unlike the overworld which was approaching dusk, Terraria was still in daylight as the sun had just risen. It's still comfortable here. Taking a deep breath of fresh air, Suyi sighed. The environment in the dungeon is terrible. It's dark and narrow, and the air is full of gray. Lily grabbed a corner of Suyi's clothes, stuck her head out from behind him, and looked at this world full of unknowns. Master, what is this place? Terraria, a whole new world, and only I can enter it. Suyi grabbed Lily from behind and brought her in front of him and began to explain. You can also come in after getting my permission. Of course, I'm not asking you to come in for tourism. As long as you can complete the work I assigned to you, you can arrange the rest of your time as you like. By the way, the flow of time here is twice as fast as outside. 2 days here is equal to 1 day in Orario. You can understand it this way. For Lily, who came from a low-income family and started begging at the age of 3. Everything that happened today and what Suyi experienced were all unheard of experiences. Is this a world that only the master and I can enter? That is to say, no one from the clan will come looking for us. There was an inexplicable glow in Lily's gem-like amber eyes. Master, what do I need to do next? What? Of course. Suyi took out the copper axe from the inventory and looked around. First, build a home as a base for long-term exploration. I'll chop down the trees. Lily, you'll be in charge of collecting the wood and keeping watch on the surroundings. If you find any monsters like slimes, report to me immediately. Home. The dwarf girl repeated this word several times in her mind. Then he followed with full enthusiasm. Check out our playlist for more amazing novels. Chapter 11 Asteroids Stand Tall in the Sky. A few hours later. Suyi looked at the house he had built with his own hands with a complicated expression. Good news, at least it's habitable. Bad news, it's a matchbox. Although building a house in the Terraria world is very simple. Just stack the blocks that have been transformed into props like building blocks. There are also no various complex quality issues. As long as it is not intentional, use bombs, detonators and other explosives to bomb. Once a house is built, there is no need to worry about the risk of collapse or damage. However, no matter how convenient it is, Suyi still has to design the style himself. So as expected, it was covered in the shape of a matchbox. It is square, with clear edges and corners, and is filled with the solemnity of a burial. This result is a normal performance of Suyi, he also does this in the game. But after actually living in a house of this style, it feels a little strange. Anyway, at least the area is large enough. Suyi finally found a reason to comfort herself. In order to build this base for long-term exploration, he cut down almost all the trees near his birthplace. The once lush forest is now just bare ground. Of course, after some deforestation. Suyi did not forget to replant oak seeds in the original place. This is an item that will drop along with the wood when you chop down a tree. As long as it is planted in the ground, it will quickly grow into a towering tree. It requires neither careful care nor fertilization or watering, it is simply a magical tool for greening. Using the remaining wood, Suyi made some simple furniture. Even without the help of metal, you can rub out objects such as wooden doors, wooden tables, and chairs. This made Suyi sigh countless times that Terraria's synthesis function was really convenient. Workbench, furnace, anvil, sawmill, loom, that's about it. After placing the various production stations in a separate room, Suyi felt a sense of accomplishment. This room will be his first step in conquering Terraria. Each workstation has its own unique purpose. The workbench can be used to craft basic furniture and building materials, as well as some early wooden weapons and armor. Furnaces can smelt mined ore into metal ingots, and can also be used to bake bricks and make glass. The sawmill can create additional furniture, but it is mostly decorative. The most important function of a loom is to make spider webs into silk. This is a very versatile material, without it Suyi couldn't even make a bed. The bed in Terraria has an important use besides sleeping. That is the rebirth point, when resurrecting. If there is no bed, every time you die you will be resurrected from the birth point when you enter the world. When entering the world, you can also use the bed as an anchor to go directly to your room. Master, I put all the things in the box. Just then, Lily's voice came from the side. She just followed Suyi's instructions and put the materials and props she collected on her body. All were sorted into the box at the base. This box is actually the treasure chest that Suyi found during his last exploration. After taking away the rewards inside, even the treasure chest itself was not wasted. Just bring it back and use it as a storage box. After all, making an acorn requires materials. You've worked hard. Go and have a rest. There's nothing to do for now. Suyi nodded and put the plate of freshly cut fruit on the table. Try it. This world has quite a lot of fruit resources. When you cut down a tree, you get wood and acorns. There is also a chance that various fruits will drop. Such as apples, peaches, grapefruits, lemons, and even pineapples, bananas, etc. After chopping down so many trees, Suyi's inventory naturally contained some unexpected gains. Unfortunately, he can't afford a butterfly net yet. Otherwise, you can catch all the small animals such as squirrels and rabbits that fall from the trees. Thank you, Master. Lily took the fruit plate with both hands, somewhat flattered. Apart from the old couple from the florist shop who had adopted her before, no one had ever offered to give her anything. Most of the time, she was the one being exploited and bullied. Suyi directly took out a whole apple and started to check the props in the box while eating it. There are still several hundred units of wood left, so there will be no shortage of wood in the short term. As for minerals, although some copper mines were collected, they were of little use. In contrast, iron ore is the mineral that Suyi currently consumes the most. Iron ingots are needed to make a workstation, and iron ingots are also needed to make a storage box. Just making these had exhausted all the iron ore Suyi had collected. As for making iron weapons and protective gear, don't even think about the consumption of dozens of metal ingots. In general, Suyi is currently very short of iron ore. I wonder if the iron ore acquired from Terraria can replace the iron ore consumption in the Terraria world. Suyi thought secretly. However, even if you purchase iron ore in the Labyrinth City, you will need to consume a lot of ferrous. With his current financial resources, it would be more realistic for him to just explore Terraria honestly. In addition to basic resources such as ore and wood, there are also some miscellaneous items in the box. For example, the gel dropped after defeating the slime is also included. These gels can be crafted into torches, among other items. Since the store page has been unlocked now, Suyi simply kept all the gels. They were not all rolled into torches at once, but were kept for later use. Speaking of store pages, Suyi opened the store and sold all the remaining fruits. The fruits that fall from the trees are all consumable items of blue rarity. If sold directly, each one can be sold for 20 silver coins. In the early stages, this was already a considerable amount of money. After packing all the fruits on hand and selling them, Suyi has accumulated another huge sum of 3 gold coins. Finally, we have the startup capital. Nodding with satisfaction, Suyi began to purchase for the next operation. The piggy bank and mining helmet are nice, but they are too expensive. I won't consider them for now. Buy a bug net so you can collect small animals and bait. Prepare some weak healing potions and mana potions. I don't seem to have any way to consume mana right now. Forget about the arrows. Why not buy some shurikens as a means of long-range attack? Finally, there is the rope. Suyi simply waved his hand and used 1 gold coin to buy 1,000 pieces of rope. These ropes are enough for him to keep placing them all the way to the sky. And this is exactly his goal. A Terraria world with the Calamitous mod added. There must be a spherical asteroid directly above the player's birth point. Hidden inside this asteroid is the original Garden Laboratory. There are a lot of good things to loot in the laboratory. Most importantly, the Garden Laboratory is the key clue to ascending Garden technology. If you want to create various powerful Jaden technology creations, it is necessary to crack the encrypted prototype diagram found in the laboratory in sequence. The first step in Suyi's plan is to go to the asteroid laboratory above his head and make a purchase for free. Preparing 4-digit ropes to get to the top is only the first part. There are less than 2 days left until the Molten Fire Festival. Converted to the world of Terraria, it's just over half a week. We need to speed up our exploration. Suyi looked at the sky covered by clouds, thinking. Strange, I always feel like I've forgotten something. Chapter 12 The Rice Bug Goddess wants to work for Suyi. In the abandoned church, Hestia put her hands on her hips angrily and looked at Suyi who was carrying food. What happened today? You're so late. I'm sorry, but Lady Hestia, who only waits for me to feed her, has no right to complain. Suyi gave the lowly goddess a light blow on the head and complained. If I don't come to deliver food, will the goddess go to bed hungry today? Of course. Hestia spoke out very parasite-like remarks with confidence. I've become someone who can't live without Suyi. You must be responsible for me. Don't go to any dangerous places. Ever since she came down to earth at the advice of her best friend, Hephaestus, Suyi is the only one who takes care of her daily life. At this point, the lowly goddess can no longer imagine her daily life without Suyi. It was just a little late today, but she felt a sense of crisis. I was afraid that something might happen to Suyi and we would never see each other again. No wonder Hephaestus is so troubled by you. Suyi pinched the lowly goddess' tender and soft face mercilessly. He couldn't do this to his own forging goddess. But it's okay to bully the parasite in front of you. This time I made a special trip to the Mistress of Plenty and bought the juice you requested last time. Eat the juice while it's still cold. Hehe, I knew Suyi was the best to me. Hestia quickly sat down at the dining table and began to enjoy today's dinner. Because her movements were not very ladylike, some oil stains splashed onto her body. Oh, that's troublesome. Hestia looked down at the oil drops on her chest and suddenly raised the corners of her mouth. Suyi, I'm busy right now, can you help me clean up the dirt here? Are you sure? Suyi looked at the place where she pointed, and the white area was so dazzling that it made her dizzy. The pair of plump breasts that do not match the baby face of the lowly goddess are exuding an amazing presence. Yes, that's right. Hestia's cheeks also turned a light pink, but she still spoke stubbornly. Why, are you shy? Alas, there is nothing I can do. After all, my beauty is often praised in the heavens. Suyi finally had a chance to take advantage of someone in a legitimate way, so he naturally wouldn't miss it. What's more, this opportunity was given by Hestia herself. Could it be that she finally had a change of heart and planned to use welfare to repay the kindness of raising me over the years? When Suyi felt that, it's enough, if I continue to bully, even a parasite will bite me. He finally withdrew his hand and coughed lightly. Goddess, I have cleaned up the oil stains as you requested. How are you feeling? Feel. The lowly goddess, who was already a little out of her trance, answered subconsciously. Very comfortable. Oh, so the goddess feels comfortable with this kind of thing. At this time, Hestia finally reacted, and she quickly corrected herself with her hands covering her chest and blushing. No, you just heard it wrong. Also, teasing the gods will lead to divine punishment, Suyi. If there really was divine punishment, it would have been triggered as soon as Suyi reached out his hand. The man and the god tacitly changed the subject. However, there was still a vague atmosphere of ambiguity lingering in the air of the room. But I've been really busy lately, Suyi said as he cleaned up the dishes. It's time for the goddess to find a class. You can't always rely on me for support, right? Oh, is it not possible? When Hestia heard that she had to work part-time, she immediately wilted. Going to work or something, it feels so troublesome when I think about dealing with all kinds of people. That's fine then. In fact, Suyi had already planned it, but he just said it now. The day after tomorrow is when the Hephaestus family will hold the Molten Fire Festival. If my work can be recognized by Hephaestus at the festival, you will be qualified to open an independent store in Babel. When the time comes, I want to hire the goddess as a clerk, is that okay? Really? Hestia's sapphire eyes widened, she held her breath, and began to think wildly in her mind. Yes. This is the best of both worlds solution. Not only can I help Suyi, but I can also earn wages through my own labor. This way, if I meet that Hephaestus again, I won't be looked down upon. It's the perfect opportunity to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. I agree. Almost without hesitation, Hestia accepted the offer. But then she started to worry about Suyi's plan. But it's not easy to get that guy's approval, right? Although I really want to cheer you on, Hephaestus is surprisingly strict when it comes to forging. As an apprentice who had studied under the goddess of forging for several years, Suyi also nodded in agreement. I have my own solution for this. Even if it's just to help you find a job, I will get the approval of Lady Hephaestus. Suyi's words deeply moved Hestia. It's okay. It doesn't matter if I fail. I will continue to be your parasite. I always feel that the direction of Hestia's feelings is not right. By the way, did she even admit that she was called a rice bug? She was trying to save face. After leaving the abandoned church and returning to the Terraria world, Suyi saw Lily, who was working hard to sow acorns near the base. Lily was a little uncomfortable seeing the sudden appearance, but she reacted quickly. Master, welcome back. Well, thank you for your hard work. Suyi looked around and found that saplings had grown almost everywhere where the trees had been cut down. Hestia, look at Lily. And then look at you. If you're tired, take a rest. This job isn't that urgent. Hey, I'm fine. Lily wiped the sweat from her cheeks a little embarrassedly and smiled brightly. For the little human girl who has no fixed place to live and is used to wandering and hiding. She was filled with motivation at the thought of being able to take care of her in her master's home, by herself. After giving Lily a few instructions, Su Ming didn't waste any more time. Time is running out, he must do it before the Molten Fire Festival begins. Find a recipe that's good enough for Hephaestus to approve. I hope this exploration will not let me down. Finally, I checked the items prepared in the inventory. Suyi followed the rope and began to climb deep into the clouds in the sky. The world of Terraria is divided into many biome levels according to different environments. For example, when Suyi first entered the world, he was at the surface layer. Exploring downwards according to the altitude, there are the underground layer, cave layer, and hell layer. On the surface, in addition to plains, there are also snowfields, deserts, jungles, dungeons, oceans, corruption, and so on. It can be said that the world of Terraria is very large, enough for Suyi to explore. The location of the asteroid laboratory is in the space layer of Terraria. Chapter 13. What is super thermal ion laser cannon? The ever-lengthening rope was like a giant's magic beanstalk. During the climb, it finally broke through the clouds and reached the sky above the sea of Clouds. After breaking through the heavy mist, a huge sphere hanging high under the sky came into Suyi's sight. Although it is a small planet, it is still a huge monster when observed on a human scale. There should be entrances to the laboratory on both sides of the sphere. Suyi recalled the structure of the asteroid laboratory, but he only had a flat map in his mind, not a three-dimensional image. The information brought by the memory seems a little distorted in front of the real world of Terraria. The only way to verify the accuracy of this information is through action. What made Suyi even more headache was after breaking through the clouds and reaching the space layer. He was finally attacked by the natives of this biome. Whoosh, whoosh. The sharp feathers reflected a cold sky blue light in the sunlight and attacked Suyi like a sharp blade. Damn bird demon. Suyi cursed as he jumped onto the wooden platform that appeared out of thin air, carefully dodging the attacks from above. In this world where physics is offline, you only need a fulcrum to place any object. Because of this, Suyi did not become a living target hanging on a rope. Instead, he laid out the battlefield while dodging the attacks of the bird monster. This is a flying monster that spawns at high altitudes. Its body is like that of a human female, and its arms are a pair of blue wings. They will actively attack players who invade the sky, firing steel-like feathers in succession. These feathers are quite lethal and easy to hit continuously. With Suyi's current equipment, if he is hit by more than 5 feathers, he will be punished with a day of death. Normally, Suyi is too lazy to get entangled with these bird monsters. But if we don't get rid of these roadblocks now, it will be difficult to continue to explore the asteroid in depth. Fortunately, I prepared a lot of shurikens. Lure them down first, and then deal with them one by one. Suyi was patient, using shurikens to slowly deplete the health of several bird monsters at close range. Although these bird monsters are annoying, fortunately they only have the attributes of ordinary monsters and are not elite. Apart from having a bit more health and a certain resistance to knockback, it is relatively easy to deal with. With Suyi's unremitting efforts, the bird monsters fell onto the platform with bruises all over their bodies, turning into star-like falling objects. There are not many types of items dropped by bird demons, the most common one is feathers. This is a type of material item that has little use in the early stages, and only costs 10 copper coins when sold to a store. However, the coins dropped by the bird monster itself are quite good, nearly 8 silver coins. Bang! The obvious sound of a heavy object falling to the ground attracted Suyi's attention. Shipped. While rejoicing, Suyi, who was distracted, failed to dodge a feather and felt a sharp pain in his right shoulder. Hiss. Suyi took a deep breath in pain, and reluctantly took out a bottle of weak healing potion from the inventory and poured it into his mouth. He didn't have time to check on his trophy until more feathers fell. He continued to throw out shurikens, and after a fierce battle for several minutes, he finally cleared out all the remaining bird monsters. Don't be careless. Suyi looked around vigilantly, then walked towards the direction where the noise came from with peace of mind. All I saw was a pile of silver coins, copper coins and feathers. A strange sky blue staff lay quietly on the platform. If I remember correctly, this should be a magic weapon. Suyi forgot the name of this equipment for a moment. But this is not important, because as long as you identify it with your own eyes, you can get the corresponding information. Sky Feather Blue Damage 8, consumes 8 mana when used, 3 feathers that can cause explosions fall from the sky to attack the target. Different from the common magic in the world of Dicuo. There is no need to chant magic in Terraria, you can cast it as long as you have enough magic power. Even Suyi, who knows nothing about magic, can immediately become a wizard after obtaining this staff. However, his magic power is very low, only the initial 20 points, and he can only cast Feather of the Sky twice in a row before waiting for recovery. More than 50 silver coins, plus a staff, it's not a waste of time. Suyi nodded with satisfaction, picked up the staff, and began to build stairs leading to the asteroid. The newly built combat platform can be preserved and used as a venue for activities in the space layer. After circling the asteroid, Suyi finally found a hidden cave entrance covered by vines. This should be the entrance to the laboratory. Suyi breathed a sigh of relief and spread the platform over. Once you enter the interior of the asteroid, you can explore the laboratory with peace of mind in a closed environment without having to worry about attacks from bird monsters. Buzz. A disguised automatic door opened and closed smoothly as Suyi approached. White cold light lamps lit up one after another in the metal corridor behind the door, as if welcoming the arrival of the owner. Such high-tech facilities made Suyi a little dazed for a moment. After living in the wrong world for so many years, he finally felt the breath of technology again. In order, this is actually the second, garden laboratory. The first lab is located beneath the desert in a biome called the Sunken Sea. However, the location of the asteroid laboratory is fixed. That's why Suyi decided to explore here first. Anyway, apart from the temporary inability to crack the encrypted prototype, there is still much to gain. Sure enough, the security measures are all on the top floor of the laboratory. After verifying the information in his memory, Suyi waved his hand and began to search wildly. The 4 dormant, energy battery factories in the laboratory can be directly knocked down with a pickaxe and put into the inventory. After being relocated, these battery factories can create energy batteries out of nothing. These batteries can be used to charge weapons in the Garden Technology series, or to create other items. In addition, there are 2 charging stations in the laboratory that you can take away with you. This is a necessary facility for charging. Just put the equipment and batteries in it. Finally, there are 2 safety boxes. They are the same as the gold treasure chests Suyi encountered before, and are all environmental treasure chests. The difference is that the safety box in the asteroid laboratory will only open fixed props. Because this is the laboratory that Jaden uses to test plant samples. So there are a lot of herb planting pots and herb bags in the safety box. Of course, there are also sundries like bombs, healing potions, torches, coins, etc. But the most important thing is the few special items that will definitely appear. You have obtained the green locator. You have obtained the encrypted prototype map asteroid. You have obtained the super thermal ion cannon. Closing square bracket. Wait, what the hell? Looking at the purple gun full of futuristic technology style that suddenly appeared in his hand, Suyi was stunned on the spot. Is this really something I can get right now? Chapter 14. Bad children are punished, good children are rewarded. Question mark. Super thermionic light cannon pink. Damage 16, can switch between the following 2 shooting modes. Consume 20 mana, fire 1 phase laser ball. Consume 6 mana, fire 1 energy beam. Defeat Slime King to get upgrades. Can be upgraded 3 times in total. Pink level rarity, this is the highest quality item Suyi has obtained so far. Generally speaking, this is an item that can only be obtained after the Terraria world enters difficult mode. For Suyi at this moment, this is tantamount to a magical weapon for pioneering new land. The effect is weaker than I remembered. It seems that only by defeating the boss can we restore its original power. Like the sky feather obtained before, this is a magic weapon. But it is not a staff, but another type of magic weapon in Terraria, a magic gun. The magic gun's attack method is similar to that of a regular firearm, but it consumes magic power instead of bullets. Suyi now only has 20 points of magic power in total, and 1 phase laser ball can drain all his magic power. Fortunately, the weak magic potions in the store are not expensive and can be drunk at will. After clearing out everything in the safe, the resources in this laboratory have been almost completely plundered. Even if there are any omissions, you can come back and continue searching later. It's time to go. Suyi rummaged through the cluttered inventory for a moment and took out a bottle of potion he had just obtained. The color of this bottle of potion is light blue like the sky, which is very novel. Memory potion, used to teleport you to your rebirth point. That's right, this is a potion that can take Suyi home. Suyi originally planned to return the same way, but unexpectedly, several bottles of memory potion appeared in the safe. The teleportation function of the recall potion comes in quite handy when exploring. However, each use will completely consume a bottle of memory potion, which is very consuming. We got a lot of planting pots and herb bags this time. It's time to grow some herbs and make my own medicine. Terraria has many magic potions with different functions, all of which can be made through synthesis. To make a memory potion, you need 1 bottle of water, 1-inch sunflower, and 1-inch mirror fish. Sunflowers can be obtained through planting, while mirror fish need to be fished in a pond with a specific environment. Planting medicinal herbs is easy. Just plant the seeds in a pot and forget about it. At most, we collect vegetables once during a specific period of time. Fishing is a very time-killing activity. Because there is a setting called fishing power in Terraria. Fishing rods, bait, equipment, potions, and even accessories can provide fishing power. The higher the fishing power, the faster you will catch fish and the better the yield will be. Suyi definitely doesn't have that much time to watch over the fish pond all day, so he can only let Lily do it first. She has the skill of behind-the-scenes supporter, which makes her very suitable for odd jobs. That's how it is. After returning home, Suyi found Lily and gave her the planting pots harvested from the laboratory. The methods of planting and harvesting medicinal herbs are what I just described. If you see worms, butterflies and small animals near your home, you can use an insect net to catch them. The former can be used as bait, and the small animals can be sold for money or made into food. When I go out, I'll leave these things to you. Lily nodded repeatedly, keeping Suyi's words in mind. Although she was assigned a lot of work, the feeling of being needed made her feel at ease. Don't worry, Master, Lily will do these things well. Very good. Suyi touched the little human girl's head approvingly and said thoughtfully. If you can really do what you said, I will give you a reward. It is reasonable to punish bad children and reward good children. Really? Lily's eyes widened in surprise and she asked tentatively. So, can Lily choose her own reward? Suyi asked back without comment. That depends on what you want. Lily hasn't made up her mind yet. The little human girl lowered her head shyly, her amber eyes sparkling. Seeing her like this, Suyi didn't continue to ask. Then think about it first. After all, the reward won't go away. The exploration of the asteroid laboratory has finally come to an end. The exploration did not take long and the process was not dangerous. Apart from being harassed by the bird demon a few times when entering the space layer, there was almost no threat in the laboratory. After all, it is a laboratory near the birth point, and the environment is relatively safe. If it's the underground, jungle, or even Hell's Jarden laboratory, I'm afraid it would take a lot of effort just to get close. The special items that came out of the safe were the super thermal ion cannon that surprised Suyi. There are two more, namely, Green Locator, and Encrypted Prototype Map Asteroid. The former can be made into a Jungle Lab Locator. After charging, it can be pointed at the garden laboratory in the jungle area. The latter contains the blueprints of many formulas for garden technology equipment. After completing the decryption, you can unlock a series of high-tech weapon formulas. However, the decryption process is very complicated and must be done in sequence. Suyi also had no intention of cracking the encrypted prototype map in the early stages of development. For him, supplies like planting pots are more practical. Put it aside for now. It may be useful someday. Suyi specially placed these two special props in the storage space of the piggy bank. This also saves it from being mixed up with the items in your inventory. In addition to these things, Suyi also found a lot of gold coins, about 10 in total. This is much faster than making money by working hard to kill monsters. 10 gold coins is a considerable amount of starting capital in the early stages of Terraria. But having money alone is useless, because Suyi has only unlocked the most basic stores now. For example, the materials he urgently needs, such as ore, cannot be bought with money, right? Not necessarily. Suyi suddenly came up with an idea and his figure immediately disappeared in Terraria, returning to the small house in Orario. If he wants to realize the idea in his mind, he must rely on the power of the Adventurers Guild. To be more precise, it was with the help of Miss Agina's connections. Chapter 15. Yes, I have a friend. After returning to Orario's room, Suyi looked around, thoughtful. Lily did not teleport out with him. It seems that people who sign the contract can act independently in different worlds. This is a good thing. It should be said that it is exactly what Suyi wants. This means that the more contractors he has, the more labor he has. He has only contracted Lily now, and is short of manpower. As the progress of the Terraria world progresses, Suyi will inevitably need more contractors. However, Suyi does not intend to continue to activate the contract ability in Orario. If the gods discover my little actions, I will definitely be in trouble. As for the Suma clan that Lily belongs to, they are quite special. The chief god of this clan, Soma, has become completely disappointed with his clan and no longer cares about them. That's why all kinds of chaos arise within the clan. The main gods of other clans are not so easy to fool. After all, these are real gods. It is only for the purpose of having fun that we walk on the earth in the form of human beings. Suyi never looked down on the gods of Orario from beginning to end. After returning from the dungeon, Suyi went into the world of Terraria to explore. The speed of time makes the sky in the two worlds inconsistent. When Suyi walked out of the room, the sky was still dusk and it was not yet night. I hope Miss Agina hasn't finished get-off work yet. Although the Adventurers Guild has people on duty 24 hours a day. But Suyi wanted to find his own adventure consultant, not someone else. Compared to the early morning, the guild seemed more lively in the evening. The afterglow of the setting sun shone diagonally into the guild hall through the stained glass. The magic stone lamp emitted a warm light, making the words on the notice board clearly visible. The places most favored by adventurers are naturally the windows of the Gold Exchange and Appraisal Office. As for the registration and consultation counter, only a few new adventurers would visit. Although this reduced a lot of workload, Aina still felt a little depressed because she was ignored. Just then, a quarrel was heard from the window of the money exchange next door. That's just a small amount of money. Stop kidding, are you blind? Did you include the monster materials? Count again, it can't be that little. There must be more money. Obviously, the dispute arose over the amount of gold exchanged. This kind of situation happens frequently in the Adventurers Guild. After all, the adventurers risked their lives to obtain the loot from the dungeon. If you fail to obtain the expected returns from exchanging gold, you will inevitably protest loudly. However, is it the Soma clan again? The pink-haired teller girl muttered quietly. It really makes me feel uncomfortable. Fortunately, I have never been the adventure consultant of the Soma clan. Don't say things like that. Agina knocked on the head of her outspoken human friend helplessly. While this is a well-known fact, it is another matter when it is said by the staff of the guild. However, Aina was also feeling relieved. Fortunately, I didn't encounter such a difficult adventurer. Thinking of this, the image of a young man emerged in the half-elf's mind. I wonder if his exploration today went smoothly. It would be great if I could return safely. Hello, Miss Agina. A familiar voice came from behind the counter. Aina quickly came to her senses and got back to work. But the business smile on her face did not last for more than a few seconds. The emerald eyes suddenly widened when she saw a familiar face. Ah, it's Suyi, you're back from the dungeon. That's right. Suyi nodded slightly and said with a smile. I'm glad Miss Agina still remembers my name. If I can't even remember the name of the newcomer I'm responsible for, I'd better not be an adventure consultant. Looking at the young man who appeared alive in front of her, Aina's mood also became happy. The irritation caused by the previous argument seemed to be washed away. She looked Suyi up and down and asked tentatively. It looks like your first adventure went pretty smoothly. The protective gear on the opponent's body was not damaged. Although there were some bloodstains, they should have been left by monsters like goblins. When he walked over here just now, the movements of his legs, feet and arms were normal. This means that there were no hidden injuries after returning from the adventure. Judging from the perspective of a newcomer entering a dungeon for the first time, it was a perfect start. Maybe it's because Miss Aina is silently praying for me, so I'm lucky. Facing Suyi's teasing, a smile appeared on the pretty face of the half-elf girl. Slippery talk, but for adventurers, luck is also part of strength. Did you run into any trouble this time? Suyi nodded, but when he spoke, Aina's heartbeat suddenly quickened. Actually, I came here specifically to see Miss Agina. Huh. When the pink-haired girl next to them heard this conversation, she immediately showed a strange expression. Oh. I have to sit up and listen to this. But after listening to what Suyi said, Aina concluded with a bit of a smile. So, you just want to ask me if there is any way to buy iron ore and sell potions. As expected of Miss Aina, you summarized it very well. Suyi nodded vigorously, almost clapping. I thought, forget it. Aina sighed helplessly and began to think. But you are a member of Hephaestus's familia, so you should have no shortage of connections to buy minerals. I haven't actually come across any of that stuff yet. Suyi shrugged and explained. After traveling to the world of Dicuo and being adopted by the forging goddess Hephaestus, he has been learning forging by the goddess side. On weekdays, he either deals with the blacksmith shop or feeds Hestia. I don't know the other members of the family. On the contrary, because I was able to stay next to the goddess, I received a lot of jealous looks. Suyi just didn't bother to pay attention to those who challenged him and clamored to drive him away from the goddess. This explanation, however, was interpreted differently by Agina. I see. Suyi doesn't even have any friends to talk to in the clan. He must be bullied all the time. When the half-elf girl looked at Suyi, there was suddenly a bit more kindness and sympathy in her eyes. I can indeed contact the merchant who sells ore, but what about the potion? Well, I have a friend. With a light cough, Suyi began to lie with his eyes open. He is an alchemist who has recently made a lot of recovery potions. Since he is too busy to get away, he wants to ask me to sell them. These recovery potions naturally refer to weak healing potions and mana potions. If Suyi used all the gold coins on him to buy these 2 potions, he could buy hundreds of bottles. He certainly couldn't use all of it, so he might as well sell it and exchange it for Farid. Then use these fairy to buy iron ore to solve the urgent need for iron ore in the Terraria world. This is the method that Suyi thought of to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The premise is that Miss Aina's connections are strong enough. Fortunately, his carefully selected adventure consultant did not disappoint his expectations. Of course you can, but I need to confirm the quality of the potion made by your friend first. As she spoke, Aina stretched out her white little hand towards Suyi. The slender 5 fingers spread out, matched with translucent jade-colored nails, looked like precious works of art. Suyi was stunned when he saw this, and he also stretched out his hand and placed it on Aina's hand with some doubt. What are you doing? This action made the tips of the half-elf girl's ears turn red, and she said coquettishly. I asked you to give me a few potion samples so I can take them to the nearby testing center for identification. Oh, sorry. Suyi, knowing that he had misunderstood, scratched his head awkwardly, and took out a bottle of healing potion and a bottle of magic potion and handed them over. Aina took the potion with a blush on her face, then glared at her colleague who was giggling beside her. What are you laughing at? You can write the next monthly summary report yourself. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 16, Miss Aina's Favor. Night is coming. Instead of the glow of the setting sun, a hazy full moon loomed in the deep blue twilight. After a day of exploration, the adventurers who returned safely from the dungeon laughed loudly in the tavern, making it quite lively. For adventurers who often dance on the edge of a knife, the atmosphere of the tavern can relax their tense nerves. Numbing oneself with alcohol and spending the day in a gradually fading trance is the daily routine of many adventurers. The entire set of streets eastward from the entrance to the dungeon are filled with signs and lights of various taverns. The Beastman girl, with her furry ears and tail swaying, dressed in cool clothes, solicited customers. Amazon warriors who are more exposed than them can be seen everywhere, attracting a lot of attention. In the tavern with a sign that read, Hostess of Abundance, the half-elf girl and the human boy finally found a seat. You really know how to pick a place. Aina was still wearing her guild uniform, but since it was already off-duty time, she relaxed her posture and looked around. When she saw the busy figure of the cat girl in maid clothes, she looked at Suyi with a meaningful look. The latter saw a teasing tone in his eyes that said, I didn't expect you to like this. I just come here often to buy food, so I'm familiar with it. Suyi shrugged and waved to a silver-haired maid passing by. Zaire, give me 2 of today's recommended combos, plus 2 glasses of iced apple juice. Ah, it turns out that Suyi is here. Hearing the guest's voice, the silver-haired maid came over in surprise and waved in a familiar manner. Why are there 2 today? Oh, I guess you invited female friends. For some reason, Xie put more effort into pronouncing the words, female friends. But her face still had a very gentle and kind smile, which was really elusive. Xie Froy, the hostess and maid of the tavern, the mistress of plenty. Because of her cute and pretty appearance and gentle and kind personality. Even among the tavern maid group that includes elves and cat girls, she is extremely popular. Although he was very curious about the half-elf sitting opposite Suyi. However, Xie still abided by the rules of a maid and did not waste time on such matters. Soon, 2 steaming hot sets of meals with a fragrant aroma were served. Another reason for choosing this place is that the interior of the store is cleaner and there are no noisy drunks. Suyi explained in a low voice, glancing at the sturdy figure sitting at the bar out of the corner of his eye. The owner of this shop is a high-level adventurer with LV5 strength, a female dwarf warrior known as the Little Giant. Although he has retired, his strength is enough to make any drunk who wants to act crazy think twice. Well, I didn't expect you to be so well prepared. Agina gently shook the apple juice in the wooden cup, suggesting something meaningful. You are so familiar with this place, do you often invite girls here? Suyi pondered for a moment and replied with a subtle look. It's better to say that I have extensive experience in raising small animals. Aina. Well, let's get back to the topic. Suyi coughed lightly and changed the subject. What are the results of the identification of the 2 bottles of potions? The identification of this world can only be achieved through special spells. Unlike Su Yi, who can get all the information at a glance. So by the time the appraisal institute came out with the results, Aina had already passed her get-off work time. After all, since he was bothering others because of his own affairs, Su Yi naturally treated him to dinner. They are all potions of very standard quality. There shouldn't be any problem selling them. Agina took out 2 bottles of potions that had been identified and placed them on the table. The market price of the healing potion is around 1,000 ferris. The magic potion can be sold for more than 8,000 ferris. If a large clan is going to launch an expedition soon, maybe it can go up to 10,000 ferri. After hearing the price of the potion, Su Yi realized something. Why is the price of a life-saving healing potion so much lower than a magic potion? It would be fine if the difference was only 2 or 3 times. But according to Aina, the market prices of the two differ by nearly 10 times. Isn't it normal that magic potions are more expensive than healing potions? Aina's tone was very matter-of-fact, as if this was a matter of course in Orario. The materials for making magic potions are rarer than those for healing potions. Only the underground masters below the middle level can produce them. Also, magic potions are essential for wizard-type adventurers. In the expedition, if there is enough magic power, maybe the entire battle situation can be reversed. So the importance of magic potions is greater than that of healing potions. It seems that your alchemist friend didn't tell you these things. Ah, I see. Su Yi nodded as if he understood, but couldn't help muttering in his heart. In his case, the prices of the 2 potions were reversed. In the shop, lesser healing potion costs 3 silver coins. The price of the weak magic potion is only 1 silver coin. If I want to sell these potions, is there any way? Su Yi's question made Aina look embarrassed. Generally speaking, the clans that are able to make magic potions and spiritual medicines have already established their own reputation and business scope. If we don't have a storefront, we can only sell our products on the roadside like a potato ball vendor. Su Yi shook his head decisively when he heard this. I don't have that much time. I have to prepare for the Molten Fire Festival in the next 2 days. Melting Fire Ceremony. Aina seemed to be thinking about something, as if she understood something. So you bought the iron ore for this purpose? Well, I want to gain the recognition of the goddess at the festival. Although these iron ores have nothing to do with the equipment he will display at the festival. But let Agina think so for now. Is that so? Oh, there's really nothing I can do about you. The half-elf girl sighed, as if she had made some kind of decision. Just focus on preparing for the Molten Fire Ceremony. I'll help you with the sales of potions and the purchase of iron ore. Su Yi was delighted when he heard that, and just as he was about to thank her, a white jade finger touched his lips. No need to thank me, since I am your adventure consultant. Aina's pretty face was filled with a big smile, and a beautiful cherry color spread out, which was actually a bit charming. You owe me a favor now, remember to pay it back. That is for sure. Su Yi glanced at the wooden cup that had been drunk by Aina, feeling a little confused. That's not right. There is no alcohol in this apple juice. Could it be that Miss Agina has a sensitive physique that would get drunk just by smelling alcohol? Chapter 17. Heading towards a land of lush branches and leaves. Miss Agina was very efficient and delivered the first batch of iron ore before noon the next day. The funds for purchasing iron ore are paid from the sales of magic potions. Su Yi provided 50 bottles of weak magic potions and healing potions in one go. The estimated profit from these potions is 600,000 ferris, enough to buy a considerable amount of iron ore. After the Molten Fire Festival is over, I will make another appointment with Miss Aina to repay this favor. Looking at the pile of iron ore piled on the open space, Su Yi thought silently. Afterwards, he used his identification ability on these iron ores that originated from the main world. You identified iron ore X330. It really works. Seeing the prompt in front of him, Su Yi suddenly perked up and his eyes lit up. After being identified, these iron ores turned into materials that can be synthesized. It's no different from the iron ore mined in the Terraria world. If I have to say something, it is that not all minerals have passed the appraisal. Some iron ore of lower quality was also left behind and counted as debris. But it's not a big problem. Su Yi is already very satisfied with such a gain. This will finally solve the current ore shortage problem. 3 pieces of iron ore can be smelted into 1 iron ingot using a furnace. Moreover, this process is completed instantly and does not take any time. In the blink of an eye, 110 iron ingots appeared in Su Yi's inventory. This kind of speed is the efficiency that every blacksmith dreams of. With these metal ingots, the first thing Su Yi had to do was to fully arm himself. Iron armor white contains a helmet, a chest armor, and greaves, providing a total of 9 points of defense, 1 point of life regeneration, and 10% damage reduction. It takes 60 iron ingots to craft a full set of iron armor. After putting on this armor, more than half of the iron ingots in Su Yi's hand were instantly gone. The remaining metal ingots were used to make an iron pickaxe, an iron axe, and a fishing rod. Enhanced fishing rod white provides 15 points of fishing power. This is the best fishing rod Su Yi can get at this stage. Although the bonus provided is not much, it is barely enough. 2 iron tools are better than the copper pickaxes and axes on hand, and can slightly improve the collection efficiency. As for weapons, since he had an iron sword brought from the main world, Su Yi made an iron bow as a means of long-range attack. Iron bow white causes 8 points of basic damage, which is superimposed with the arrow damage. The characteristic of bow weapons is that they can use different types of arrows. The result is the damage of the bow itself plus the damage of the arrow. Some arrows have additional effects. The most basic wooden arrows can be made with any wood and stone. Only 1 unit of each material is needed to make 25 arrows, which is a large quantity and a sufficient supply. They can also be purchased in the store for 5 copper coins each. 1 gold coin can buy 2,000 wooden arrows, which is not expensive. However, Su Yi had limited funds, so he finally chose to rub it by hand. When you are no longer short of gold coins in the future, you can buy as much as you want, which can save time. In addition, Su Yi also made some wooden arrows into flaming arrows. Only 1 torch is needed to craft 10 wooden arrows into 10 flaming arrows. Although the damage of flaming arrows is only 1 point higher than that of wooden arrows, they have a chance to apply the burning effect. Not only can it cause additional damage, but it can also provide light in dim environments. It is very practical whether for exploration or combat. Su Yi kept the remaining iron ingots and used them to make facilities such as boxes. Time to go out and explore. After a brief rest, Su Yi looked at the sky and walked out of the cabin. Lily, who had been busy all day, was resting next door, so Su Yi did not disturb her but left quietly. According to the terrain I saw from a high altitude, the 4 directions near the birth point correspond to 4 types of terrain: deserts, snowfields, plains, and jungles. This is pretty much all the surface biomes. As for the ocean and evil environments, we need to continue exploring to discover them. Su Yi's exploration goal this time is also very clear: the jungle. There is still 1 day left until the Molten Festival, which is 2 days in Terraria time. Su Yi needs to collect materials during this time and make a weapon that is good enough to gain the approval of the forging goddess. In addition, you also need to collect equipment, strengthen your own strength, and challenge the Slime King. Taking all these factors into consideration, Su Yi believes that the jungle is undoubtedly the best area to explore. Although the jungles of the Terraria world are full of thorns and monsters, they also have extremely rich natural resources. Defeating monsters in the jungle biome can drop materials such as stingers and vines. Add to that the luminous spores that are everywhere in the underground jungle, and you can synthesize all kinds of jungle-themed equipment. These equipments are much better than the iron protective gear and weapons on Su Yi. For example, a complete set of jungle armor can not only provide twice the defense value of iron armor. It can also increase maximum magic power by 60 points, magic damage and critical hit rate by 6%. What Su Yi values most is a weapon made from poisonous stings, vines, and jungle spores, the grass sword. Although the name of this sword is ordinary, its rarity is orange. In addition to the base damage appropriate to its rarity, it also inflicts a poison effect on enemies it hits. While swinging, it can also launch leaf blades with penetrating effects for coordinated attacks. These leaf blades can also cause a poisoning effect. From any perspective, this is a very powerful weapon. The most important thing is that this sword can be synthesized with other weapons and upgraded into a powerful weapon called Blade of Eternal Night. However, the other 3 weapons required for synthesis are much more difficult to obtain than the grass sword. With Su Yi's ability, he is not able to collect them for the time being. In comparison, the grass sword, that only requires jungle environment materials, has become the best choice. This is also the work that Su Yi intends to display at the Molten Fire Festival. Once I have the jungle set, the grass sword, and the super thermal ion cannon, I will be able to challenge the Slime King. I hope that this exploration won't lead to any accidents, or at least no one will die. Looking at the dark jungle pit leading deep underground, Suyi took a deep breath and slowly lowered the rope. Chapter 18, An Unexpected Reward from the Jungle Shrine. With the determination of never dying, Suyi was very cautious during this jungle exploration trip. The underground jungle biome consists of a dense network of interconnected caves filled with mud, pools of water, thorny bushes, and the occasional beehive. Unlike the relatively safe birth point, the monsters here are more dangerous in both type and strength. Buzz. I noticed a buzzing sound coming from the damp and stuffy air. Suyi frowned impatiently, tensed his nerves and looked up. In the underground space lit up by the flaming arrows, several huge dark yellow wasps were swaying left and right and flying towards him. The size of these wasps is quite amazing, almost larger than the little human girl. Their method of attack is also very troublesome. They directly fire poisonous tail stingers at distant prey. It is no exaggeration to say that in Suyi's eyes, these wasps are no different from armed helicopters. First it was the bird demon, then the wasp. Can't we have some easier enemies? With a sigh, Suyi quickly dived into a natural cave, almost brushing past the flying poison needle. After losing their target, the wasps approached suspiciously and entered Suyi's attack range. It's my turn. Suyi's figure suddenly appeared from behind the bunker, carrying an exaggerated super thermal ion cannon on his shoulder. In an instant, his 20 points of magic power were directly drained away and transformed into a phase laser ball with astonishing power that shot out. The moisture in the air evaporated instantly, and the expanding ball of light exploded, tearing the monster's body into pieces. Within a moment, the smell of burnt protein wafted over. After confirming that there were no enemies nearby, Suyi put away his weapon and searched around for the spoils left by the wasp. Although these wasps are difficult to deal with, they will drop stingers, a key material for making Jungle Series equipment, after being killed. To craft a set of jungle armor, 10 stingers are required. To make a sword of grass, you need 12 stingers, which adds up to 22. Fortunately, the drops from these wasps are pretty good, almost every 2 will drop a stinger. In addition to the most basic materials, Suyi remembered that these wasps also had a 1% chance of dropping the Bazaar accessory that could immunize against poisoning. This thing is one of the components for synthesizing the Ankh amulet, an essential survival artifact in the middle and late stages. If one can drop it this time, you won't have to come here specially to brush it later. There's light down there. Suyi raised his eyebrows, and he saw the green fluorescence looming in his field of vision. It was not the faint light emitted by the jungle spores, but it is a light that keeps leaping like a flame. This instantly cheered up Suyi, his eyes lit up. In the underground jungle, there is only one reason for this situation. There's a jungle shrine nearby. The jungle shrine is a small, special structure found in the underground jungle. The whole is constructed of fluorescent bricks and mahogany, and contains a green torch inside. Each jungle shrine will have an ivy chest. It will contain a rare underground jungle item and various other common underground and cave items. Simply put, if you come across a jungle shrine, there will definitely be a treasure chest to loot. Many Jungle Series accessories instantly emerged in Suyi's mind. However, despite his excitement, he did not lose his vigilance. In fact, when he discovered the jungle shrine, he also noticed some abnormalities nearby. For example, the man-eating monster, rustling and peeking in the corner. Get rid of these sneaky vines first, so they don't attack me when I open the treasure chest. Suyi took out the thermionic laser cannon and squinted his eyes to aim. It just so happens that I'm still short of some vine materials, and they've delivered them to my door. These vines are monsters called man-eaters. Their roots are at very long distances, and they rely on the pincer-like structure on the top to hunt. Although due to the limitations of their root system, they can only move within a certain area. But because it can move through the mud, the man-eating monster has the ability to suddenly appear and launch sneak attacks. The man-eating monsters near the shrine were obviously using the treasure chest and light source as bait, waiting for Suyi to fall into their trap. Unfortunately, they are the prey this time. A series of energy beams pierced through the darkness like sharp blades, cutting off the stalks of the man-eating monster. Suyi used the laser mode of the thermal ion light cannon this time. When facing scattered enemies, it is easier to concentrate firepower and kill them one by one. In the game, only hitting the head can cause damage to the man-eating monster. But if we cut off the stems, it will also be considered a kill. Looking at the cannibal's limp body, Suyi seemed to be thinking about something. It seems that previous experience cannot be fully applied to the real Terraria world. He had actually felt this a little bit before. The most intuitive example is that the bow and arrow in the game can shoot wherever you point. But after making the iron bow, Zhi found that he couldn't shoot an arrow at all, and his accuracy was all over the place. In the end, the bow can only be used as a flaming arrow launcher, purely as a lighting tool. It seems necessary to practice archery. While groping towards the jungle shrine, Zhi secretly made up his mind. Bows and arrows are a relatively important type of weapon in Terraria, and there are many powerful weapons with amazing power and practical effects. It would be a real loss if we gave up on such weapons just because we were not good at archery. These man-eating monsters dropped some vine materials. Zhi counted them and found that there were 5 in total. Just enough to make a grass sword, plus a set of jungle armor. Collect some more jungle spores, and this exploration will be a successful conclusion. But before that, there's still a treasure chest to open. The jungle shrine was small, even smaller than the room Zhi rented in Orario. After entering the door, Zhi did not immediately walk towards the treasure chest in front of him. Instead, he carefully observed the floor and walls. Only after confirming that there are no traps such as petals, poison darts, etc., can you move your feet with confidence. There was no way. The previous death experience was so unforgettable that it almost made Zhi suffer from trap PTSD. Let me see what treasures are in here. With excitement and anticipation, Zhi reached out and opened the ivy treasure chest. Treasure chests in Terraria, except for some special types, are not locked. Once discovered, it will be an unexpected fortune. After seeing the props in the treasure chest, Zhi was stunned at first. I actually found this thing. Chapter 19 Growth, Life, Happiness, and... This exploration took quite a long time. When Zhi used the memory potion and returned, the time in Terraria had already reached the dawn of the next day. I didn't expect that my first night in Terraria would be underground. Looking at the sunshine outside the window, Zhi yawned and felt tiredness coming like a tide. Although exploring alone is flexible, it is also more energy-consuming. Zhi must always be alert to the dangerous environment and prevent threats such as monsters and traps. Once his equipment and strength are improved, he can ignore ordinary monsters. Before taking a break, Zhi put all the items in his inventory and piggy bank into the box and began to organize them. First of all, there are 3 most important jungle-specific materials: stingers, vines, and jungle spores. Zhi placed these 3 materials separately in a corner of the box and started making them after the break. The second is the medicinal herbs and minerals collected during the exploration process. Although this time I went there specifically to collect jungle materials, there was no reason not to collect the ores and herbs I saw along the way. It's a convenient thing to do anyway, so why not take it? The rich mineral deposits in the underground jungle mean that the ore harvest this time is also quite abundant. In addition to low-grade copper and iron ores, there are also 2 precious metal minerals, gold and silver. Even Zhi discovered the magic mine during the exploration. This purple mineral is extremely rare and rarely occurs in naturally occurring veins. Generally speaking, if you want to obtain a large amount of magic ore, you can only do so by killing the corresponding evil environment boss. Unfortunately, the level of the iron pickaxe in Zhi's hand was too low to collect this level of minerals. However, based on this, he did get some information. Since it is demonite ore, instead of crimtane ore, the evil terrain of this world should be a corruption biome. There is only one type of evil terrain that can appear in a Terraria world. The scene boss of the corrupted biome is the World Devourer. The name sounds very impressive, but it is actually a giant worm that can move freely through soil and rocks. According to the actual proportion, its body length is nearly 100 meters. Zhi could hardly imagine how he would face this huge monster next. He can handle it easily in the game, but facing the boss himself is another matter. Let's take it one step at a time. We'll have to face it in the end anyway. Sighing, Zhi thought silently. The reason why Great Cause is called Great Cause. It is the reward given to adventurers for completing unimaginably difficult challenges. If he can really succeed in killing the boss of the Terraria world, I wonder what kind of feedback God's grace will give. Then there are some miscellaneous items, such as silt blocks, dirt blocks, grass seeds, etc. After sorting out all the debris, Zhi took a deep breath and solemnly took out a staff. The shape of this staff is very unique, like a giant rose with a pink flower on the top. Regeneration Staff Orange deals 7 melee damage and has the magic of growth and harvest. Su Yi walked out of the room and casually waved the regeneration staff in the open space around him. I saw that the mud that had been deliberately flattened was quickly stained with a layer of green. In the blink of an eye, ankle-high grass and colorful flowers grew. A few colorful butterflies flew from afar and landed on the flowers, adding a touch of vitality. Although he already knew the effect of the regeneration wand, Su Yi still felt very magical when he actually saw this scene. According to Terraria's rarity classification, orange is the next level after white, blue, and green. Usually means the best item obtainable pre-hard mode. The staff has low damage, as it is a tool, not a weapon. Now I can play the role of a druid. Su Yi couldn't let go of the staff in his hand, and the ground around him became green and covered with flowers like a garden. Growth, life, happiness, what else? Never mind, it's not important. The important thing is that the Staff of Regeneration can increase the output when harvesting herbs. Moreover, you can ignore specific flowering conditions and obtain both medicinal materials and seeds directly from mature herbs. This is an important function that cannot be replaced by other tools. As a rare reward from the Jungle Shrine's treasure chest, the Staff of Regeneration's functionality is worthy of its rarity. You can hand it over to Lily later. She's in charge of the herbs anyway. Because Lily has little fighting power, and she can't be resurrected infinitely like Su Yi. Therefore, the latter basically would not take her to particularly dangerous places, and usually she would stay at home to take care of the medicine garden and do some odd jobs. The area near the birth point is relatively safe, and there are no particularly powerful monsters. At most, they are just some small fish like slime. Even at night, there will be zombies, demon eyes and other enemies that will actively attack. At this time, just close the door to keep them out. Only in difficult mode will ordinary monsters that can pass through walls appear. However, with Su Yi's strength and accumulation at that time, he would never allow such monsters to invade his territory. After dealing with the gains from this exploration, Su Yi finally couldn't resist the surging tiredness and fell onto the bed and fell asleep. When I woke up, the next day's sun was already shining outside. Master, you finally woke up. Lily seemed to have been guarding by the bed. Seeing Su Yi rubbing his eyes and sitting up, she quickly brought water and food. What time is it now? Su Yi asked as she wiped her face with the wet towel handed to her by Lily. He gave Lily the right to enter and exit the Terraria world freely so that she would not miss any important events happening in the main world. He prepared so much for the Molten Festival and even specially invited Sword Princess to participate. If he missed this event because he overslept, even Hestia would probably laugh at him. It is late at night in Orario, Master. Lily naturally knew what Su Yi was worried about, and answered in great detail. The Molten Fire Festival doesn't start until the morning, so you still have plenty of time to rest. Yeah, I understand. Hearing Lily's answer, Su Yi breathed a sigh of relief and rubbed the little human girl's head. I have to say that although Lily's hair looks a little messy, it feels quite good, like fluffy and soft cotton. After a simple breakfast, Su Yi recalled what happened before his big sleep. He took out the Staff of Regeneration from the inventory and gave it to Lily, and briefly described its function. There is actually such a staff. After listening to Su Yi's explanation, Lily suddenly felt that the staff in her hand became heavy, as if it was made of gold. Such a precious treasure is rare even in the Maze City. Instinctively, Lily felt that she was unworthy of such a precious prop. I was about to refuse subconsciously, but finally took my words back. Instead, there was Lily's determined gaze. Master, Lily will take good care of and use this staff. Good, very energetic. Su Yi nodded with satisfaction. You've performed very well these past 2 days. Do you want any reward? Chapter 20 Molten Fire Festival. Tsubaki, you're back. In the scorching workshop, Hephaestus, the goddess of forging, heard footsteps behind her and turned to look. What came into view was a tall woman with black hair tied up in brown skin. Her left eye is covered with an eye patch like Hephaestus, a mirror image of the goddess. However, it is not difficult to tell from her delicate facial features that she is from a Far Eastern country. Yes, I have been on an expedition with Loki's family for several months, and I finally had time to come back and take a look. The woman called Chun spoke in a very relaxed tone, revealing her closeness to the god. In fact, she is the leader of Hephaestus's family, an adventurer with the title of Cyclops. Where is the little brother who always follows you around and helps you with the ironwork? Chun looked around the workshop for a while, but didn't see the familiar figure in her memory. I gave him a few days off. Hephaestus knew who she was talking about and subconsciously looked to the side of the forge. Just a few days ago, there was a figure who often accompanied her there. He has officially joined the clan and has the right to choose whether to become an adventurer or a blacksmith. Chun looked at her goddess sideways with a teasing tone. I think it would be better if you use some coercive means to keep him by your side. When I came in just now, I saw you standing there in a daze, not even moving the hammer. Hearing this, Hephaestus sighed. It is always sad when children leave the nest to be independent, but I cannot order them to break their wings because of this. Let's not talk about this anymore. You came back just in time. What do you mean? Chun rolled up his sleeves and subconsciously took out the forging tools. You want me to help you? No, today happens to be the day of the Molten Fire Festival. Hephaestus patted the one-eyed girl's shoulder and reminded her. You deal with Loki's family a lot. Do you want to invite them to the festival? Well, forget it. Chun thought for a moment and shook his head slightly. In fact, they prefer to cooperate with the Guberniu clan. I just went on an expedition with them. The Guberniu clan is also a clan famous for forging. In fact, the product levels of the two families are similar, but the service methods are different. Hephaestus is good at manufacturing uniform standard equipment and maintaining excellent quality. The Guberniu clan prefers to customize according to the adventurer's strength and fighting style. Therefore, the latter is more favored by the powerful Loki clan. The weapons and equipment of the high-level elite adventurers in the clan are almost all made by the Guberniu clan. Only the lower and middle-level members would use the products of the Hephaestus familia. But I heard that Sword Princess was invited. Suddenly, Chun seemed to have thought of something and spoke with interest. The person who invited her is called Su Yi. If I remember correctly, this is the name of that little brother, right? That's right. Hephaestus was stunned for a moment, as if she couldn't imagine how Su Yi could know a member of Loki's family. She is also a popular adventurer with the title of Sword Princess. Really, I think this kid is pretty good. Tsubaki gave a look that said, as expected. He can do whatever he wants just because he has a handsome face. I wonder how capable he really is. Don't make it too hard on him. Hephaestus heard the eagerness in her words and said helplessly. You are a LV5 advanced adventurer, and he has only registered for a short time. What about forging? Compared with you, the most powerful blacksmith in Orario. At least we can produce something decent at this Molten Fire Festival. The tall girl with a healthy complexion shrugged. After all, even I haven't stayed with you for so long. Hearing this, Hephaestus couldn't help but retort. Isn't it because you always say, newly made weapons must be tested with real weapons and then you often go to the dungeon and don't come back for several months? Well, I am at my current level thanks to this. Chun didn't care about this at all and was even proud of it. When does the festival start? I can't wait to see my work. He specially invited GNG, it can't be that he wanted to make a fool of himself in front of her, right? The venue for the Molten Fire Festival was paved by renting the entire arena. Because the quality of the forging work needs to be demonstrated, an open space and the indispensable target are needed. The arena run by the Ganesha clan meets all the above requirements. Not only does it have an empty and spacious venue that won't be crowded even with thousands of people attending. It can also provide living monsters captured from dungeons. These monsters are kept under strict control by the Ganesha family to ensure that they do not escape and cause trouble in Orario. This kind of monster economy is the only one in the entire Maze City. Because the Ganesha family is also the organizer of the Monster Festival, the guild has granted them special permission to take charge of this business. After the Molten Fire Festival began, except for the Hephaestus family who had booked the entire venue. Only those who are invited by clan members can enter the arena and participate in the festival. At the entrance of the arena, there was already a line of people waiting for their identities to be verified. Just then, the team became confused due to the arrival of an adventurer. It seems that Miss Icy is very popular. Feeling the burning gazes coming from all around, Suyi said without changing his expression. The person walking side by side with him was the Sword Princess in casual clothes. Her long golden hair fluttered with her steps, her fair skin was inadvertently exposed, and her beautiful face was no less beautiful than that of a goddess. It was no wonder that some male adventurers stared at Su Ming with murderous eyes. Yeah, Icy responded lightly. She probably didn't realize what popular meant. But thank you for inviting me. You've already thanked me before, Miss Icy. Su Yi asked while registering the visitors. By the way, why did you accept my invitation? The blonde swordswoman answered without hesitation. The weapon was taken for repair. I need to find a spare weapon before the next expedition. After thinking for a while, Icy added. It'd better be cheaper. Repairing weapons is very expensive. God has already reprimanded me several times. As the elite main force in the clan team, Icy's weapon is naturally a high-end product tailored for the Guberniu clan. If equipment of this level is damaged, it would be time-consuming and expensive to repair. No wonder Loki reprimanded Ice for this. Will Sword Princess also be troubled by money matters? Su Yi asked curiously. Icy looked at him calmly, opened her red lips slightly, and said a number. 40 million Ferris. What's the meaning? The cost of repairing the Sword of Despair is also my current debt. Okay, I think I understand. Su Yi looked at the sword lady beside him with sympathy. This amount of money is enough for any commoner in Orario and his entire family to live a prosperous life. Who would have thought that this beautiful girl owed such a huge sum of money at such a young age? However, with Sword Princess's fame and strength, it is estimated that the debt will be cleared in the dungeon soon. In that case, I have a small request. After thinking about it, Su Yi suggested. The work I'm using for the Molten Fire Festival today happens to be a sword. I wonder if Miss Sword Princess could be the tester of this sword. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.